infections like pneumonia. You come in for a hip surgery, but you end up with a pneumonia. So we want to try and get them out. So I think one of the things that needs to be done, I think, for healthcare systems across all countries, and that's something we as a private healthcare operator are doing as well, is to move very aggressively into what we call the out-of-hospital sector.
Karen, do you have anything to add?
Yes, in fact, I would like to also kind of get us to kind of rethink how we view aging. Because typically when we talk about aging population, the default thinking is you think of older people. But the reality of it is our whole demographic pyramid is changing. Yes, there are more and more older people. At the same time, there's lesser and lesser younger people. So in fact, in today's day and age, we have as many people above 60, some of which are on the stage here, as there are people below age 5. So I think when we look at aging, we need to look at aging societies and not just only about geriatric care. I think we can't use those two concepts interchangeably. So the key problem is how do we frame the problem, or how do we look at the problem as potentially an opportunity for businesses and societies as well. Yeah.
Marianne?
No, I just want to echo that. People always think about aging as for older people, but actually we have the privilege of living a longer life. And living a longer life is not all bad. It's not if we prepare well for it, it could be very good. I remember when we were little, people would give the angbaos and say, may you live to 100 years. Now 100 years is a reality, and living to a longer life is an aspiration. I think, however, it's not without challenge, because I came to Asia very quickly. Asia already has more than half the older people in the world, because of rapid aging. People always think about aging or privilege living long as a priority of the privilege of the advanced country with money, and that's not true in Asia. Most countries are actually aging very rapidly, they get still not rich. So the same with our sector, the aging sector always like growing, other countries grow rich before they grow old. In Asia, we're growing old before we grow rich. So a lot of infrastructure is not in place. So of course in Asia, countries are very different. South Asia, East Asia, and Southeast Asia are very different at the different point of that development in terms of population aging or the economic development. So in some countries, having that pension system's not there. Or the health care to provide not just acute care, but long-term care is not there. Or urban centers, but being so fragmented, people disconnected, isolated, and lonely, it's not being addressed. Families change a lot. Previously, we had large families took care of mom and dad, end of story. Now, families are small, women are working, often the children are not even in the same country. So therefore, whereas older people live longer, maybe have more needs because of health and other issues. So the needs gone up, the resources come down within the family. So all those changes are happening very quickly that we have to all adopt, both individually to make sure how we plan for older age, community support those who don't have family, and of course society of the proper social structures in terms of financial security, the healthcare system, and so on and so forth. So I think across Asia is a very different picture and different stage of development, but challenges for certainly quite a number of countries.
Yeah. So Dr. Prem, how well prepared are we, in general, for this challenge, and what will be the best way to tackle this problem?
Well, I think, first of all, I think there's realization among most countries, and some countries are further ahead than others, that we'll have to do something about this. Well, I don't want to call it a problem. I agree with Marianne that this is a reality, and there are lots of people who are living well into their 70s and 80s, so we've got to... So different countries are doing different things. If you look at Singapore, just to take an example because it's closer to home, the Healthier SG program, I think, is something that's really something that addresses this issue. Right-siting care. You don't want the elderly to come into hospitals often for various acute medical problems. So preventive health, primary care, having a regular physician, which is what Healthier SG attempts to do. And it's very interesting. I think there was a SMU study, Singapore Management University study a few years ago, a survey that says that only 35% of the elderly have a regular family physician. That means 2/3 of our senior citizens do not have a regular family physician, right? So I think one of the aims of Healthy SG must surely be to try and get as many of them on board to see a regular doctor. all chronic diseases should ideally be managed in the community. They shouldn't be coming to hospital for hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, and all that, which is what happens now. They see a multitude of specialists. So that's, I think, from the patient's viewpoint. I think from the manpower viewpoint, we are very, very heavily biased towards what I call the interventionists and the surgeons. Right? We have lots of them to take care of the hip surgeries, the knee surgeries, spine, general surgery, and all that. But we do not have enough generalists. A few years ago, the 3 deans of our medical schools in Singapore said that we need more of 3 types of doctors. We need family physicians, and they are actually doing that. They're training a lot of family physicians are different from general practitioners, right? They're actually specialists in family medicine. We need more internists, which actually disappeared from the scene some years ago. Every internist subspecialized into some area, so more internists. And geriatricians. I don't think we have enough geriatricians, right? I know of people who are looked after by a geriatrician for a multitude of problems, and their health is probably much better than those who do not have a geriatrician. So I think manpower-wise, we've got to do that. And then, of course, facilities, right? If you look at our new generation polyclinics, I think they're amazing. You have everything from acute, chronic, retinal eye screening, active aging centers, rehab centers. I think that's what we need more of, all in the community.
Karen, do you think there is any particular area that we needed to act more urgently?
I think we need to, again, reframe how we think about aging. And I like to go back to this point, and also to build on, I think, what Dr. Prem said. There is a sense of, somebody's growing old and somebody falls down and everybody rushes to look after and intervene. But I think in order to prepare all of us, be it seniors of today or seniors of tomorrow, we need to start early. I think looking after our physical health, be it our financial health, the earlier we start, the better. And I think, which is why I think what the Singapore government is doing is actually focusing people on getting a family physician, on starting early. Because by the time we're actually in the super age segment, it's a little bit too late to really kind of do stuff. And as Marion mentioned earlier on, I think one of the best things about us living in 2025 today is lifespans are longer. We should be enjoying those longer lifespans, not sort of thinking like, oh, it's such a deficit, and you can't do this and you can't do that. So I guess we need to reframe our mindset, so kind of think, how do we enjoy longer living spans, not just lifespans? Because, the gap in Singapore between lifespans and your health span is about 11 years. You're 74 years when you're still hale and hearty, and then there's about an 11-year gap till before you sort of cross the rainbow bridge. But the question is, how do you kind of make sure that that gap is minimalized? And that's why we like to say, let's enjoy longer living spans by prevention, by better preparation, and by actually having an all-of-society approach. Because I think, it's not just physical health, it's mental health. And that mental health is also determined by communities, your friends, social health, and obviously financial health too. So I think we need to adopt a more collective, all-of-society approach, be it the private sector, be it the public sector, be it communities and the social sector as well.
So when you say starting preparation early, how early it should be? Like,
I think
Marion or
Marion said that we start aging the day we're born, right?
I think the preparation is very funny because, generally speaking, particularly in the Singapore context, we plan, right? When we're kids, we study, and then, when you're younger, you're working your career, and then you get married, you plan for children, and you learn parenting and all that. But somewhere along the line, by the time we retire, people stop thinking about it. So they have an individual society level, no sense what future may look like. And you should plan for the additional 20, 30 years, which, as Karen said, start early. So I think the planning actually is on different levels. Individual level, I think self-care is being most important, right? You need to know what it takes to age well in terms of physical care and sort of keeping mental and physically fit. Spending the time with a family to develop a relationship with the family so they don't end up at the end of the day estranged from their children. Of course, you have to be financially organized with that as well. So that's individual. But some people, in the family at some point may become caregiver. So they need to also get that mind around that. So you kind of get some sense how to prepare for that as well. And of course, for those no family or few family members, communities come together, community providers have to play a role, and social policy has to support that as well. So I think it's every level of preparation that, generally speaking, we're really not quite there, whether system level or individual level. The other thing is actually private sector. I think somehow in the sector of longevity and aging, private sector got left out. And actually private sector is a very important role. One is such huge opportunities. People think of older people, the elderly, as people who are frail, sick, and needs a wheelchair. They're going to look more and more like me. I turned 70 this year, and I plan to be kicking, going strong for a lot longer, right? So it's like the 70-year-old's not the same as today as before. So therefore, you really have to be able to make sure that the products and services for everybody. I look like they look nice, you know. But anyway, so you have the service products for everything. So the market is not catching up, whether it's insurance, healthcare, whatever. Market got huge opportunities because older people just want everything like everybody else. It's just a little different. The other thing is actually also responsibility, particularly in terms of employment. There are usually ageism everywhere in companies. So by the time they're 45 years old, they decide they're not trainable. By 55-year-old, they're obsolete, probably because they're not trained. And once they lose a job, they're not like another job. And at 55, they live to 90, right? So employers must also play a role in terms of making sure that you make sure that you can optimize on how would you work with an older worker. And you're going to run out of young people to hire. Don't think that never mind get rid of them and hire some young people, because they won't be there for you. So you're going to have to be able to evolve to make sure they optimize the role of your mature worker. If I'm mature, I mean 45. Because oftentimes in Singapore context, by the time they're 55, many of them lost their job and they're not going to get another job. So I think there are many things to explore here.
I think that's a good segue to healthcare system. I mean, living longer means simply that we will have more people to treat. We will need more specialist doctors and caregivers, but these are not hugely popular jobs at the moment, right? So maybe Dr. Prem, what do you think needs to be done to make these jobs more appealing to trainee doctors, for example?
Well, we've got to change the incentives. Today, doctors, private healthcare sector doctors are predominantly, and even in our public sector, are predominantly incentivized by procedures, right? By number of surgeries that you do. And I think we've got to incentivize the geriatricians, the family physicians, and all that better. They are the lower tier at the moment. So I think we'll have to look at that, how to get more of them into the system. I always tell a young doctor who's going to train, I said, you should be a geriatrician. You will have a job for life. If you become a radiologist, in 5 years you will not have a job because AI would have taken over the reading of the x-rays, the CT scans. So be very careful what you choose as a specialty. All of us in this era where people are losing jobs very frequently, find something that will really give you a long career. And family physicians, family medicine, geriatrics, I think really would be the right thing to do. But secondly, systems. So you spoke about care models. Really, we need to look not just at hospitals, but also look at the out-of-hospital sector. The third thing I would say, which is very important, and I'm sure we all hear a lot about it, is technology. Technology, AI, and all sorts of things. And I'll quote one example that we now have in almost all our hospitals: fall prevention systems, AI. Because elderly patients in hospitals tend to fall, right? They slip in the bathroom. So today, all our hospital rooms have got sensors that predict whether a patient is going to fall, all right? And so I think these are the kind of technologies that will help us in the healthcare sector.
If I may just add on, and those technologies can also be applied at home as
Absolutely.
well. Because, I think increasingly there will never be enough hospitals with, and so I think the reality of it is as we grow older, as societies age, people will be aging at home and in place. So how do we leverage technology to actually make the elderly more independent, at the same time enable us to intervene if something happens.
And I think the government subsidizes it in Singapore, right?
Yes,
alarms and all sorts of things.
Yeah, so do you want me to respond to that?
Yeah, if you have some.
I think first is prevention. The things that get people in trouble are things all preventable. Hypertension not treated end with a stroke, The diabetics that's not treated and with the amputation, or chronic kidney failures. Those things are actually expensive and long term. If you get people to live healthy, all those things are by and large preventable. So Singapore with aging well and the healthy SG policy is very, very good. We need to double down on that so every generation can be aging as healthy as possible themselves. And a lot of times it's the person. Right? You can build a healthy environment. The hawkers have to provide healthier food, all that. But at the end of this, each person preparing for themselves, so prevention is key. Second thing is I don't think you can ever train enough geriatricians, and it's too expensive. You need some. For the most complex older people with many health problems, many social problems, a lot of mobility problems, yes, a geriatrician. But otherwise, you should train family physicians, internists to take care of them. Just like you're not going to send every baby to see a pediatrician. And I was a pediatrician, so obviously pediatrics is very different from adult care. So you need to train a generalist to take care of older people as best as possible. So the number of people who need geriatrician is very, very small. A very 2% of the older population maybe will need a geriatrician. And lastly is long-term care. We are not really that prepared with long-term care. Of course, you can have fancy retirement villages and all that sort of thing, but most people actually want to age in place. They want to live at home. They want to live with people that are in a familiar environment, in this neighborhood and all that. So you need to have service in the community that take care of them in the community and not send them somewhere. Even though there's some pretty fancy ones that I like, but still, the thing about older people is very heterogeneous. You need choice. I want to be able to live at home. I want to go to some fancy retirement home, whatever. But there should be choice in the market for older people to, mature adults to choose what they want. Yeah. But long-term care is definitely an issue as well.
And to kind of build on Marion's point, last year at the DBS Foundation, we held an Impact Beyond Summit. And at this Impact Beyond Summit, we wanted to address really the challenges and opportunities within aging societies. And so one of the, again, paradigm shifts that we said that is required is it's not only about caring for the elderly, it's about living with them. Right, and so when we kind of reframe, it's living with older people, such that there's also can have that intergenerational element. And because whilst health is physical health is really important, but the statistics show that what's killing people is actually also isolation. So again, living together in society, with the family, in community, I think it's really, really important. And that's something that the Singapore government is also kind of focusing on as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's very good point. Let's talk about finance and money. I mean, the governments now have this dual challenge of maintaining healthcare quality and also making it affordable to everybody. What would be the best way to tackle this problem? Marianne, or?
I mean, find income security in later life, is what you're saying? Well, I think that Singapore, of course, has a CPF system, which is good, but I think that it only gives us a floor, really. So people do need to save on top. And of course, in Singapore, your home is sort of your nest egg as well. So if hopefully the market is not down, then you can sell their flat and bigger flat and use that money to retire as well. But I think this is obviously an issue across many countries whereby there is no policy that creates some kind of old age income floor, so everyone has some minimum amount of money to retire on, and so on and so forth. So I think that's something that I think across Asia, except for Japan and some of the countries very advanced and already have those policies in place. I think a lot of countries don't have them. Only a small portion of the population have it, the rest don't. And for the rural community, of course, it's somewhat safer because in the people in the rural community, at least they have a home, they have land, they may live very meagerly, but at least generally speaking, if the healthcare system is there, that's a major expenditure is healthcare. So they have the home to rely on, it's still not so bad. But I think the governments must think about really how to create some kind of floor for minimum income security for people when they grow older, in addition to your own personal and family responsibility to save enough for yourself.
Which is why Dr. Prem and I were discussing, because we're about the same age, about CPF life, and that's one of the mechanisms in which insurance, healthcare insurance, and starting while you're young, are ways in which actually we can help to defer it. But again, it's the healthier you are, hopefully the less need you will have, to kind of draw on those policies.
If I can just add, I think what Marianne said about the best place for an aged person to be living in is the home. But you need a whole ecosystem, ideally home care, active aging centers, all of which we have in Singapore. The nursing home sector in Singapore is a little bit difficult because land is very expensive, and our financing system provides mean-tested, the ability for some of the people who need to go into a nursing home. If you're means tested, you are the lower strata of society, you can go into a nursing home. But a lot of the others are sort of left out, right? Okay. Now, so I think healthcare financing is going to be a very key sort of feature for as societies age. We were talking earlier about Japan, right? Where we have a subsidiary, Parkway Life REIT, which owns 50 nursing homes. And I visited some of the homes, they're excellent, but Japan has got national health insurance, which covers. We've recently gone over to Europe, again, nursing homes, because Europe also has got social insurance. So that's something that a lot of Asian countries, we do not have. So it's pretty much, if one of your family members goes into a nursing home, you will have to, pay out of pocket.
So Singapore, Japan, and some European countries are doing pretty good job in terms of preparations. But any other countries? I mean, you all traveled all over, so I'm just wondering whether you have any places that you think are doing a good job, and if there are places or countries that are not doing a good job, and if you can tell us why.
Yeah, I think the healthcare financing was really missing Asia's primary care very affordable, so the kind of get the access to preventive care stronger, and other things long-term care. I mean, I would like to think that nursing home is certainly one option, but it should not be the only option, right? Services coming to the home or some kind of hybrid models is important. In the Singapore context, I think in Asia in general, the housing and service combination is not yet really explored, right? It's oftentimes the thing about older people with this, like, is some for those who have some mobility issue, is about housing that's age-friendly, and of course service they may need, and of course transportation. Those three things pulled together can allow a person who has frailty or disability still have a life. And the things that you don't have to have disability, you have handicap with a disability. Like Singapore's gone a lot better when I first moved here. When I first came here, there were no ramps, stairs everywhere. It's actually pretty difficult for people to get around. But now there's always a universal design. There are ramps, elevators, so you can still be in a wheelchair, can still get around. So I think that's the thing about making sure built environment is very sound. So that's actually even people, as they get frailer, they can still get around perfectly well. And the same thing, having services that they need, right? So bring service to the home and so on and so forth. So I think that those things could be further explored in Asia. And there's, again, a business opportunity to explore, to build more of this kind of environment for developers, right? Some developers come to us and say, what can we do to make it more attractive for people in the 40s and 50s who may want to eventually grow old in the same place? So how would we design that? What kind of service is important to bring in? So you just tell them that you only need to, for services, just 3 key people: a nurse care manager to help people manage their health care, and maybe a social concierge to sort of help organize social activities and not socially isolated, and make sure someone can fix things. The other day I tried to change a light bulb on a very tall light. I was challenged. So sometimes small things I used to do when we were younger become more difficult, so the housekeeping. So basically it's just not so difficult to organize services for older people, but it's good to bring that into with the housing. Yeah. And same thing with access transportation.
I just wanted to add, I think the fact that we're living longer, but retirement age is around the 60s in different markets in Asia, but people are living at least a good 20 plus years longer. So the concern about like giving people a reason to kind of get up in the morning, something to do, something to look forward to, and at the same time there is like labor crunch and all that. So I think, the advent of micro jobs, or jobs whereby you can still re-employ the elders, perhaps maybe not full-time, but smaller chunks and all that. I think there's opportunity to develop that further. And that's something I know Singapore is trying, and I think in some other markets as well, it's not as well developed, but I think we should look into that more. Yeah, micro jobs.
Yeah. So I will ask one final question and then we'll go to the floor for audience question. So tariff, U.S. tariff deadline has been just extended to August 1st. How do you see this playing out? Is it going to have any impact on healthcare and hospitals? Maybe Dr. Prem first.
Well, not at the moment. So we are a large Asian healthcare group, right, with 80 hospitals. Most of our supplies, our machines, come from Asia, right? Consumables, Malaysia, India, China. Even the heavy-duty machines today, CT scans, MRIs, even if they are European or American machines, they're made in Asia. Stents, implants. So we did a study when the tariffs were imposed. We found minimal impact of tariffs on the healthcare sector in Asia, certainly. Yeah.
Okay. There's a question from the audience. What should be done to support seniors with their mental health care need and companionship?
Right. I think this is an issue, particularly in urban settings, whereby, sometimes they're lonely in the midst of a crowd. You can see an older person within the family, and they're just by themselves, and no one's really talking to them. So I think that this is really a major issue. But I must say, though, there's one thing I learned from older auntie of mine who's very vibrant, and I said, what is your secret sauce to aging so well? And she said to have younger friends. So though you don't always end up with your social circle gets smaller and smaller because your family are older, your siblings, your parents, or your friends pass away. So social circles do get smaller after a while, and they may be a little bit more mobility impaired, so they're less likely to get out and make friends. But always make younger friends, okay? Because there are always younger people around to connect with, and they're not going to die on you at the same time, and not be so isolated. I mean that not as a joke. I mean it seriously.
I was just going to say at DBS, we have a very active corporate volunteerism movement. We call ourselves people of purpose. And one of the things our colleagues, our volunteers do is actually befriend the seniors. And so, it's actually visiting them at home, bring them out to do their grocery shopping, just going to chit-chat with them to find out how are you doing. So I think that's where maybe the private sector can do their part too, because, there are these we call ourselves a movement, to actually help to kind of help the elders live with some kind of dignity and purpose and joy. So it's not a quick fix. It's something that we have to do it on a continuous basis. So in conjunction with SG60, we've committed to providing nutritious meals to the less fortunate seniors twice a week. We've committed to actually visitations once a month, and we've committed to taking them out to do grocery shopping once a quarter.
Yeah. So can I just want to make one last comment, which is really about the community and intergenerational relationship. I've oftentimes, we talked about the kampong spirit and all that, but we find that overall we've done some research across 9 countries between South Asia, Southeast Asia. The relationship between people actually do get softer. And the conversation that comes to us that people, younger people, older people, all said that they have misgivings about each other because they don't talk to each other enough. There's not even a touch point for them to talk to each other, so they can get to know each other better. And I think that's something that providers like ourselves that work in the community can do a lot more, whether it's with companies or schools or community, to bring platforms for people to talk to across generations, so that the stickiness between generations and neighbors is stronger. So if I'm alone at home, I can rely on not just volunteers, but also my neighbors and things like that.
Yeah, that's very great insight. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to our panelists for that session. I think the clear message there is that an ageing population is something we should all be preparing for now, regardless of our current place in the demographic. We're now going to shift to another defining challenge and opportunity of our time, climate action. Asia is, of course, on the front line of climate change and also at the centre of climate innovation. This session is being hosted by Ann Tan, Managing Director at the Centre for Sustainable Finance and Private Wealth, Singapore. Please welcome Ann to the stage to introduce her panellists.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Anne, and here I have with us our three lovely and amazing panelists, and we're going to dive straight in, okay? So, to all my three panelists, we're going to be exploring what your organizations and yourselves as leaders have basically done and navigated this entire green transition in the context of your industries. So, I would love to start with Drahomira, right, because she's on my left rather, and in one sentence, what does leadership in the green transition mean to you in your role as part of Asahi Group Holdings?
Thank you and good afternoon. So we got a challenge of one sentence here, just for you to know. So I would say it's inspiring and advising the solutions which go beyond the interest of one company and really create the transformation and the change in the journey to the sustainable future.
Okay, so I'm hearing the word inspiration. Yeah, okay, thank you. So, what about Naresh?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's about catalyzing and accelerating action to make sustainability as a part of business operation and inspiring for that collective action which balance economy with sociology and ecology both.
Thank you. So catalyzing, accelerating, and inspiring for collective action, right? Thank you. And what about Kadir? What would the leadership in green transition mean for you in your role?
Thanks to everyone for making time for the green transition. I think the leadership for me in my organization, taking bold, long-term, human-centric approach to problem and opportunity.
Thank you. I love the words bold and human-centric. So that basically sets the frame for our discussion in the next, I would say, 27 more minutes. And we're going to start off with what's been working for all of you, yeah? So I would love to start this next question with Kadir, okay? Could you share a little bit with us about what's been working in the context of what kind of green projects, right, are you backing in Asia through your company that basically signals to all of us here where the future is headed?
One of the mainstream of my work is social impact, and I see an opportunity where when we put human in center of everything, any other technology. So in a more practical way, so I have a Singapore portfolio company that operates in Central Asia. So we basically do a green transition from coal to solar, where we transform a gear community from coal burning to a solar. And then throughout the transition, we generate carbon credits. And we sell these carbon credits in different markets to finance those projects. And UNDP is our partner in these projects, and we already scale it to thousands, and it will come to 1 million by few quarters. So we already given an access to a people, energy access to a people who did not have before, except a coal burning from heating, and then we help them breathe a clean air, and then we made most polluting ones finance this without touching any of their income. So this was one good example we scaled.
Thank you. Did I hear you correctly? You said without touching their income.
Yes, without touching their income, because we sell those carbon credits. And we finance it through that, and my company in between having a commission, and so it is one actually sustainable solution for the impact investors, and it makes financial as any other like conventional solutions.
Great, thank you. All right, so shall we go with Drahomira then? Yeah. Now we go on to the brewery side. Okay, it's a very, very different industry and context. Could you share with us what is one green transformation that Asahi is leading in Asia that's, in your opinion, making a real difference?
I think probably the biggest one is the carbonization journey. So our commitment is net zero by 2040. We are not only brewer, we are also brewer. We also have the beverages. We also have a food business across the world and in Asia and Japan. And we are, by 2030, committed to decrease our GHG emissions in Scope 1 and 2 by 70% and Scope 3, which is our supply chain, by 30%. And this, to be achieved, is really big, significant positive impact. And for that, what we are leading is really bringing the solution to the table to pilot the solution. So the one area is within our manufacturing side. Renewable electricity is something what we are equipped, so it's definitely something where we lead. But also what is probably a little more difficult and complex, our activities within the Scope 3. So we understand our supply chain, we have a methodology how to measure it, and we have engagement with our partners who are our suppliers to find solutions together how to decarbonize within packaging, within agriculture, within transport, within cooling. And being here in Singapore, I'm originally from Europe, based now in Japan, but here in Singapore we have our global procurement organization. I think we are leading also in the governance. So we did the setup where we actually brought the responsibility for the supply chain decarbonization to our colleagues who are directly working with our suppliers so that we can find solutions together.
This is very, very exciting. So how are you feeling pertaining to this journey? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being extremely confident, where are you at?
To achieve. So
yes.
I think 2030 is achievable. There are still some challenges, especially in the heat decarbonization. I think the long term, it is more challenging because we see that there are still missing solutions. But this is why I spoke about the leadership at the beginning, because leadership means that we put the issue at the center and we work with everybody to find solutions together, not for our company, not for our industry, but building the ecosystem and infrastructure which will help to bring the energy management, to have the resources of the renewable energy, to have the other solutions so we can together achieve it.
Love it. I'm loving your confidence that comes within, and I'm just going to make a very bold assumption. I'm hearing at least a 7 upon 10 confidence.
Yeah, I'm very positive person.
That's very good.
So it's definitely closer to 10 than below.
That's very good. We're going to come around to the challenges in a bit. But before we get to Naresh, Kadir, confidence rating, 1 upon 10, where are you at? Based on what you were mentioning regarding the social impact that your fund is trying to create.
10.
Awesome. Got a great panelist here, guys. So, Naresh, now you're ready for the answer. Okay, the question to you would be the sustainability decision that changed the game for you in your company, and basically what it took you to get it done.
So I think that our group, Aditya Birla Group, is one of the oldest business house in India. We started in 2012 program called Re-Earth, which was starting for sustainability. That time we have no sustainability department and expertise. We built that Re-Earth, we want with the vision, we want to give back more what we take from ecosystem. A very bold vision that time. And no team, no expertise. But what we did differently is that each business senior leader, we created 10 missions from energy, water, decarbonization, supply chain, social safety, etc. All the 10 missions, we say one senior leader will drive it. And they have to get expertise, they have to drive it in the manner we run the business. And I think that was the change which transformed the whole thing. Instead of sustainability as a peripheral thing, it become core of the business DNA. We reviewed it in the same manner. We review all that business KPI. Measurement was in place, review was in place, monitoring system was very robust. I think that is the thing which put very strong foundation, what today is called ESG or sustainability or net zero. I think that that make the big difference.
Well, so Naresh, I just want to clarify what I heard from your sharing is that selecting the right leaders and empowering them to take ownership of the entire setup basically pretty much paved at least 50% of the way. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's more about setting the responsibility and accountability, and same time, it's changing the mindset. Sustainability is adding the cost. It's part of the business. And that mindset and behavior, I think, put a lot of accountability and transparency within the system. And then we keep building on that, because 2020 target, what we said for sustainability 1.0, we more or less achieve all that target, or we surpass some of the target.
Awesome. So at this point, as you're sharing this, on the same scale of 1 to 10, 10 being extremely confident, how confident are you that whatever you've done can take your company?
I think self-rating is not good, but most of the other global rating agency, including Indian and global, they rate us top. So I would say that external validation is the good confidence, where we get that highest rating, even that MSCI, DGSI, Indian system, we are the highest.
Okay.
I think that is the rating which and for us it is not rating or outcome in year, it's journey. Excellence is a journey which we take, which we started and we continue to work on that.
Okay, thank you. She's choosing not to answer my question, but we'll come back to it in a bit.
Other will rate us, not...
yeah, I know, but I'm just curious enough.
I will help you, because
Thank
it's
you.
not about the individual companies rating.
Yes,
we can,
it's not.
and it's probably
Yeah.
back to, we can inspire because we are
Yes.
committed, we do it. But if you really would like to transform the overall society, it's about it's everybody ratings, every individual, every
I agree.
company, every regulator. So I think it's a common effort in a way. So we can be proud or less confident, more confident about our journey. We do everything to be on 10.
Agree.
But it's good, but we need more.
I think I would say that I'm more proud because today our sustainability is case study in Harvard. I think that is the confidence we have.
Awesome. Thank you. Right, so we're now warmed up.
So I think since we found it to implement actually the solutions around green transition, like what I see, the risks and the problems around is not within our company, but lack of vision and long-term thinking in policymakers and also the other big corps, because they're not helping us to scale. I mean, we have a long term, but currently they're not helping us to scale, and then they're not looking the current position as a emergency and opportunity at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, they just ignore the problem and they just want to keep up, you know, going with, and this is the like biggest challenge we're facing.
So Kadir, thanks for segueing to this next part, right, on the roadblocks. So in your capacity as the leader of your firm, how are you and your team navigating these set of challenges that you mentioned?
So what we do is we partnership with the NGOs to make people more aware of the problem and act upon, because at the end, I believe people will make the change. People are sincere, people are thinking for their future, for their next generations. So I'm hopeful from people. So we engage with NGOs, we help, we support them exposure in the private sector, and then they kind of scaling, you know, the climate education. The most data is in English. And so we kind of help scale that to other languages. And also we observe and invest in youth so they can, throughout that, we observing they are looking for meaningful changes, also in the big corps, you know. So they have to act or they will going to be replaced. Yeah. So we move with the people. I mean, this is my answer.
Thank you, which is very in line with your starting sharing on being human-centric, right? So what I'm hearing here is basically ensuring that there's access to the people in terms of climate education in languages that they understand. So awareness before change, right? And then using the understanding that they can be empowered to basically effect real change for all of humanity.
Yes.
Yeah? Thank you. And Drahomira, shall we come back to you? Because you also did mention slightly on the challenges. So could you share with us what would be the biggest obstacle, right, that's been slowing down green transformation in your work, and how are you addressing it?
So what currently we see with our roadmaps to decarbonization when we speak about green transition is especially the missing solutions. So in a production side, you not only have the electricity, but you also need heat, and the heat decarbonization solutions are at the moment rather limited, or they are quite costly, require big change management exercises. So this is something what is slowing down, and there is a different situation in different regions, which we see. So there is more opportunities for renewable electricity in Europe, for example, than in many Asian countries, especially in this region. But also, as I said, the heat decarbonization is probably the biggest challenge. The two things which we are doing are, the one thing is like to leverage our capabilities internal in some regions, especially in Europe. We are testing many technologies to decarbonize, like heat pumps. We are testing the solar for heat, not only for electricity, which is also amazing. We have a cooperation to get the steam as a byproduct from other factories for our breweries, again, to decarbonize. We are changing our gas boilers to the electric boilers. So there are many, many solutions. So what we try to do is to leverage our global scale and to test what is possible, pilot it in the environment where we really can quickly test it and then potentially scale it globally. That's the one thing. The second thing, we open to the new innovations, not only internally, because we have a very robust innovation team in Japan, quite advanced, but also externally. So the last year we launched the global innovation program, and we invited startups to bring their ideas, their solutions, and we did accelerator with them, an incubator, and we are now having 4 different business cases tested in our manufacturing site in Japan, in Europe, and in Australia, where we are trying to help them to grow their idea of decarbonization within our manufacturing site, with potential to grow it beyond our business.
All right, thank you. That's very helpful. So what I'm hearing is constant innovation with constant testing and prototyping to suit the local context.
Absolutely.
Right? Thank you. Naresh, so before we get to QA, Naresh, what about yourself and your organization? What would be the one biggest obstacle, and how are you guys navigating it?
I think that systematic change is always slow, and change management is even more difficult. One of the biggest challenge which we have is that data management. How to get that integrated and real-time data which is accurate. And being that so fragmented supply chain and value chain, we have 35 plus brand in India. We have 3,000 suppliers. Getting all that together was one of the biggest challenge. And how we address it, I think the two things which we did differently is, one thing is that stakeholder management. We reach out to all different stakeholders, internal and external, and in a way where it is co-creation and collaboration, something to co-design to address the challenge. Second is that we have the digital platform and technology enabling, where we develop internal platform for getting all the data. We have something called product lifecycle management, and we embedded it with the LCA approach, which later on become lifecycle thinking approach. I think these are some of the challenge. Data management, how to get from unorganized sector, inaccurate and real time is something challenging. It's still a long way to go, but I think first part of tier 1 and tier 2, we are able to get. Scope 1, scope 2 is good, but scope 3, when you have 15 category, 9 are critical, and you sell every second we sell 10 garment. That is the scale we have. It's still a long way, but I think digital and technology enabling is the way we have addressed it, and we are going to address it further.
Right, thank you. Thank you. So basically, I'm also hearing somewhat similar to what Kadir mentioned, being human-centric through the stakeholder management and leveraging the digital innovations and the data collection, right, to help you move forward. Thank you. We're going to go straight to QA because I see some very interesting questions. So shall we answer the first one here? To our speakers, how do you see Trump pulling back from climate change affect the pace of green transition across the globe? Kadir, you want to go first?
I think we should look at this agenda as a long term. It's not, we cannot act with each government because, I mean, still the larger amount of the governments are still on track, and we should, like, our agenda shouldn't be momentarily, it should be a long term. I think this is definitely one thing I can say. And like whoever has a long-term vision will be the ultimate winner, and you know, so.
Thank you. What about Naresh?
I think that it has some short-term impact, but long-term, because sustainability and climate change is a long-term thing which is linked to strategy. We have seen that COVID suddenly came and we have navigated through. So short-term challenge like this keep coming, but when you have that your vision and mission clear, I think it's long-term perspective what company and organization take.
Thank you. And Jahamira?
Yeah. I think majority of the board teams had this question at the table immediately when the movement started. And in Asahi, what we said, we are clear about our direction, our commitment, so we continue doing it. We even will be more vocal about our stand, especially on the D&I agenda, because that's really needed. And yeah, we continue. Of course, there can be a slowdown of the flow of the money or the solutions, but it will not stop direction. So the direction is right. Every company I speak with is actually committed to continue the journey.
Thank you. Focus on the long term, focus on the ultimate goal, and stay resilient regardless of whoever tries to distract. Okay, I like the second one. What impact have tariffs had on your sustainability strategy and broader supply chain, and what are you doing to overcome uncertainty around them? The big T. So, Jahamira.
So scope 3 is a big chunk of the emissions for us in Asahi. So the overall 91% of our emissions are from scope 3. Within this sustainable sourcing of sustainable agriculture, the raw materials are around the 15%. So this is quite an important priority area for us. We are working directly with our partners, with farmers in different parts of the world. We have different programs where we are focusing on the decarbonization, the climate adaptations, but also the farmers' resilience and well-being. And it's quite successful from the performance perspective. We are currently in 2024, like the decreased 14% of our scope 3 emission versus 2019, which is our base year. And our commitment by 2030 is to decrease scope 3 by 30%. What is important is that we really have the roadmaps, very clear plans, or every year what to do, what to focus on, where we can achieve this journey to 30%, what needs to happen to achieve it.
Thank you. Kadir?
So I think for Aditya Birla Fashion, we are the first retail company from India to sign SBTi target. And being part of that SBTi advisory committee, we understood it, and we have taken that 9 category. Scope 1 and 2, we are reasonably good because 67% of our energy requirement is through renewable source. Supply chain and value chain, when we go to extreme side of it, is Scope 3. We have plan, we have decarbonization pathway, and we have signed place for that net zero. We are very much on that track, whether it is alternate materials, sustainable supply chain, or even sustainable manufacturing. We have all that to plan in order. Hopefully, we should be able to achieve it on time or before time.
Thanks, Naresh. Kadir, off to you.
I think this is more of their question. We, as a financial, I don't want to waste their time now.
No problem. With that, I'd like to save some time for, okay, let's go for the question for Asahi, right? In a traditional industry like beverage and brewing, how do you foster a culture that welcomes disruption and experimentation for sustainability?
So one of our Asahi 3 values, the globally, is challenge and innovate. So I think this is the most important thing, and it was mentioned by more CEOs here, like we need to be more open to make mistakes and learn from mistakes. So this is something what we definitely need to accelerate, but that mindset of the challenging, innovating, disruptive, the way how we do things as enable of this transformation, I think it's a part of the DNA of Asahi people.
Thank you. Perhaps for Kadir as well as Naresh, do you have any advice as well pertaining to this question on fostering a culture that welcomes disruption and experimentation in your context?
Well, I think what I observe is most of my team and the people around me, they're all youths, they're all under 35. And I can see the change. That's why I can think of future. And so the Gen Zs, they are more looking meaning in anything. And I think this is an opportunity and risk for today's corporates. And they should consider those changes. I don't know. As I know, only 1/3 of Gen Zs are drinking alcohol. So it leads companies like Asahi to switch other, maybe more functional drinks and all. But what I want to say, we have to look at humankind more. We have to invest human, like we're looking at AI, for example. You know, because AI get tremendous investment, today got to the point it is, and so today, it's even at the risk of getting at unethical points where they want to replace humankind, like as they think they don't need anymore. But I think we should put more investment in basic human needs, enable their capacity in order to take humanity next stage. I think this is something we should stop and think and serve a little bit more in underprivileged so we can go a better future altogether.
Thank you. On that, Naresh, any final words before we get to Drahomira to close the session?
So I think that I would say to all audience and participant, walk the talk. Every small action matter, and a small action become collective action. So I will encourage you to buy, you all are consumer, buy the product and services which is made responsibly, which is sustainable, and which take care of that society, environment, and business at large in equilibrium.
So walk the talk.
Walk the talk.
Thank you.
Take action.
Walk the talk.
Everyone take one action.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And Drahomira, final words?
Probably just work together. It's about collaboration. We can only achieve green transition if we all care on individual, company, society level and collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you. So the future is not going to be green by default, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be green because we choose to lead, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and panelists, you have given us our marching orders there. It's time for a final quick break before our last sessions of the afternoon, and you definitely don't want to miss those because they're going to cross over driverless taxis, esports, cross-border transactions, and a duo of central bankers. So we're covering it all in these last few sessions. So we'll reconvene in just under 30 minutes. So grab a cup, make a connection, and we'll see you back here shortly. Hello, welcome back to Reuters Next Asia, those of you in the room, and also to the 3.5 million viewers we've had so far today on the live stream. We just have a few more sessions to go this afternoon before we invite you here to join us on the Cloud Terrace for drinks, but we have saved some of the best for last. So I'm delighted to welcome back my colleague Brenda Go for a conversation this time with Pony AI co-founder and Chief Technology Officer Lo Tiancheng. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to have with me Lo Tiancheng, the co-founder and chief technology officer of Pony AI, an autonomous vehicle technology company or robo-taxi company that went public in November and is now expanding across the world. Hi, Tiancheng.
Yeah, hi.
So to prepare for our conversation, I spent the last couple of days talking to some of my colleagues abroad, and I think the widely held perception in places like London and New York is that China is way ahead on robo-taxis. Is that true?
Oh yeah, first of all, I would say, yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I will track the technology development for this industry for more than 10 years. So over the past 10 years, it's developed a lot. Roughly, I would say the time back to, I would say 2022. Most of the companies starting in both China and the US, they started doing what we call operation. Operation means that, so in the China and the US, in some cities, the vehicle can do it without anyone, without the driver in the vehicle, and can serve the operation. You can order the taxi, then the taxi will dispatch you to a destination, then you have to pay. It's a complete end-to-end experience of the robotaxi. That started 3 years ago. That's roughly the update for the industry.
So where is China now compared to Europe, compared to the US in terms of robotaxi deployment and development?
Oh, yeah. Of course, I think China and the US are definitely one of the two of the top leading ones of robotaxi industry. There are many dimensions for that. Since you ask a compare, say, there are multiple dimensions. The first one is, say, the size of operation area. We always started in the 10 to 20-ish square kilometers, then extend to 100, 200 square kilometers or even larger. Also the size of the fleet. So we started with the 10-ish, 20, 30 vehicles, then we upsize to 100, 200. That is where we are. And next step, and both China and US try to extend to the thousands. And for the cities, especially for China and US, we all both focus on the top tier, like the tier 1, tier 2 cities in both countries.
I mean, besides these cities, Pony also has been on expansion mode. You are now conducting tests in South Korea, Luxembourg, and the Middle East. Why these countries, and how soon might we be able to see fully operational robotaxi fleets there?
Oh, okay. Maybe one thing we start touching that maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but I want to say the technology for robotaxi is very generalized. So we train an AI driver that will be able to drive under very different, diverse driving environment, like different countries. Like in Singapore, people drive on the right side, on the left side, etc. So for the AI driver, it's very straightforward for the AI driver to be able to learn how to drive in different environments like other countries. So technology will not be a blocker for that technology. So that's why most of the leading companies in the world try to extend their business market to other countries, like you mentioned. So Pony AI started our extension in the South Korea, also Europe, also Singapore, the Middle East as well.
So, and then Tesla, I think Tesla got a lot of people's attention because their recent launch of robotaxis in Austin, Texas. Did you watch the launch, and are you worried about competition from Tesla?
Yeah, it's a good point. So first, of course, so we do close follow the progress of the industry. And I would say almost all the robotaxi companies, when they start launch their product, they follow similar trajectory of the launching. Like I mentioned, we always start with a small area, like 10 to 20 square kilometers each, then extend. We start with some of the good weathers, then we extend to some bad weather like rains. We start with a small size of the number of vehicles, then we extend to larger ones. Also, for the operational mode, means that we always start with someone sitting in the driver's seat, then we switch to someone sitting in the co-driver's seat, we call the passenger seat. Then we put someone in the remote to monitor the vehicle, then we get rid of any human being. So I would say almost all the companies, including Tesla, also follow the trajectory of the launching of the robotaxi. That will give us the confidence that we are doing towards the same goal, and we are along the trajectory.
So I mean, what you're saying is that they're following a similar trajectory to what Pony AI has done. But will they take business from Pony AI in the future? Can they take business from Pony AI?
Oh, in general, I would say today the market, we're still at a relatively small size of fleet compared with the existing business. I would say today too early to think of a competition. I would say all the companies in the industry working together try to extend the market, try to attract more attention to get the market be matured. I would say that will be the priority for all the companies for now.
I mean, Tesla takes quite a different technological route to some of, to Pony AI. Elon Musk doesn't want to use LiDAR in his robotaxis. Do you have any thoughts on that?
In general, the short version is that this is just one of the minor difference in the term of technology. Like we all use in the AI approach, we use the neural network, we use end-to-end, we use word model, we use reinforcement learning. We use a group set of sensors. And for the sensors, probably one thing is different from China and US. So especially in China, we can leverage off the much advanced supply chain. So it's easier for Chinese company to have even a lower price to purchase some of LiDAR, radar sensors. That may change the decision. So for me, I would say because of also LiDAR, radar, they have a similar price range compared with the camera. So that's why for me it makes perfect sense to use a combination of different sensors. That may trigger the different decision for the sensor setup. But in general, I would say, if you're asking the difference in technology, I would say this is just a very small percentage of the difference for technology. So overall, back to the question, the majority of the tech track are also the same for different companies.
And so how long might it take for Pony AI to break even, to turn profitable?
Yeah, okay, good point. So I just mentioned 3 years ago, 2022. So yeah, we started doing operation, we started charging money. But that time, definitely we are not reached the point to break even, as mentioned. So there's one thing we haven't touched yet. That's about mass production. So mass production means that I want to mass produce vehicles to significantly drive down the cost. So over latest generation, as shown in late April, which we unveil over latest generation, that we get cost down by 70%, almost 3 times lower than before. Also, we already started the mass production for today, and our vehicles for the latest generation, we already started testing in Guangzhou and Shenzhen public road. Then we are planning to extend the fleet size to 1,000 by the end of this year. That will be the target for that mentioned break-even point of the robotaxi.
So Pony AI also, you are headquartered in China, but you also have a presence in the US. And there was a report in the New York Times late last month about Travis Kalanick wanting to buy your US unit. So what's happening there? Are you selling? Are you spinning off your US operations?
Sorry, no further comment I'm putting here today. But I would say we still leave the US office to have some exploration or study of the latest technology development, AI technology. That's mainly for the US side. But again, no further comment can be made on this part.
I mean, US President Donald Trump also has been a big topic of today's conversations. And there is no clear end in sight to his tensions with China. How is this going to impact Pony AI's overseas plans? And are you worried that Pony AI could be forced to delist from the US?
In general, I would say, even without this, I would say global market overseas expansion is one of the core business for Pony AI. They're also one of the top priority. Because again, as I mentioned, technology will be not a blocker because they're very generalized to cover different driving environment. So it makes perfect sense for Pony, for also the other autonomous driving company to try to extend the market other than the China and US. That's definitely something we will focus in the future.
But so in a sense, then Pony AI is pretty insulated from the trade war. Is it? Is the company insulated?
In general, I would say our supply chain is diverse, and so also especially for the latest generation, So oversubscription leverage the mass-produced component makes that very standard-produced component. So minor of those can be affected by some of the geopolitical reasons, especially for that one.
Okay. The next topic I wanted to kind of ask about is safety. I mean, when I think about robo-taxis, I also think about whether I'll be willing to put my kids in a robo-taxi to go to school. I mean, what would you say to parents like me, and what are you doing to improve the safety or the perception of safety of robo-taxis?
Okay. First of all, safety is not something can be claimed. So I should not claim that this vehicle is safe. And there are multiple ways to prove that I'm good enough. Maybe I've used the word example in China first. I will say in almost all the cities in China, to acquire a license, we should conduct a significant mile of the testing to prove that your safety record is at least one magnitude and like 10-fold safer than just a regular human driver. That will be the entry point for robotaxi. I'm not saying we just have 10x safer. Actually, that's the entry point. That gives the passengers, give the government, give the regulators the confidence that, or give us the confidence that we can serve without any participating or others driving. We can drive itself.
I mean, but do you think consumers right now? I mean, when you have a fleet operating in China, what kind of concerns have consumers voiced out, and what improvements still need to be made to the service, or what things have you all been doing to try and change or improve the perception of robotaxis?
Good point. First, regarding the customer feeling, I would say that's probably the time 3 years ago. So I remember a certain percentage of the customers when they took the first ride, they may be curious about safety. They may, maybe in the first few minutes, they may unconscious a little bit about the movement of the vehicle. But later, because the vehicles move safely, move very smoothly, they earn the confidence. We have a mutual trust of the vehicle that we started. So today, I was per vehicle already have at least 15 daily orders per day, like just a regular taxi. So this one working. But one part that I would say one thing definitely we need to improve is the size of the fleet. We need to have more vehicles, to have a better coverage, then to significantly improve the efficiency, also reduce the time of the waiting time. Because we have more vehicles, we'll have less waiting time, etc. So to improve the overall experience of this fleet, of this new product.
I mean, when people talk about AI these days, there's also a lot of worry about the jobs that AI could threaten. And in some places, they worry that, maybe robo-taxis could take the jobs of taxi drivers or ride-hailing drivers. Do you all have a view on what percentage of the taxi fleet and future robo-taxi could account for? And do robo-taxis threaten jobs as well?
I will say this could be one of the misunderstandings, and put it this way. Today, I will say even the sum of if we add all the number of robotaxis in all the cities, I will say that's lower than, especially lower than 1%, or even lower, I would say. In general, robotaxi will serve as serving the area that will be lack of drivers, try to complement the minimal transportation of the city. That will be the ultimate goal for the taxi. Also, another thing I want to highlight here is that the intention I started working on AI is I want to try to AI to improve human lives. So I will try to provide a very elegant and a decent experience to the riders, not just, I would say, to just try to compete with the existing human. That will be the ultimate goal for the AI, try to improve our lives.
Maybe we can move on to some questions from the audience. I think we have one question over there. It says, what's going to come next after robotaxis?
Very good point. That's actually discussing something I want to cover next, I will say. Okay, so today the vehicle is designed for human driving. So like the steering wheel, like the panel side, like the design of the vehicle. So for robotaxi, that implies that there could be no driver in the vehicle. That may indicate some potential change of the design of the vehicle. The vehicle is designed for the passengers. We don't need steering wheels, so we can redesign the in-cabin experience to improve that. I would say revolutionize the vehicle design will be the next for robotaxi. Later, robotaxi technology will enter some of the person-owned vehicle, this market. That was the next big milestone for robotaxi.
So when you talk about the vehicle design, I mean, how might it look like for a future passenger in a robotaxi? How could these taxis be reimagined as cars?
Like say, Today, again, I say today the car is designed for driving. So there's just a very few of things the passing can be done in the vehicle. But later could be different. You can have a conference. If you go to sport, you can have some preparation for that sport in the vehicle. So vehicle can be purposely designed for different purpose of the rider. That will be the next one. Again, not for today, not for tomorrow, but I would say in the future, I believe this something could change after robotaxi launch.
Pony, I mean, alongside robo-taxis, people also talk about robo-trucks.
Yeah.
Is that an area that Pony AI has also looked into? What do you think the potential is there for robo-trucks?
Oh, yeah. Pony AI, we do have robo-truck business running already. Again, I would say technical side. So we train our AI driver be able to drive in different environment, also the different type of cars. So we leverage one technology to be able to drive trucks and the taxi at the same time. So they are just technology getting mature at the same time they are moving. So once they mature, we can start the scale the robo truck business.
Okay, wait, another question. Are there international regulations for driverless driving? Would meeting some? Oh, sorry, I think we went back. Okay, maybe we'll take this one, the latest question. If there is no safety driver, who's going to take responsibility? Oh,
okay. There's clear regulatory for that, the liability. This question asks about liability for the robotaxi. So there will be use the record collected by the robotaxi design who will be liable for the incident. Could be one of the major, could be equal, could be one of the minor. Then the technology provider will in charge of the vehicle in charge of the if it is liable, then back to the same as the vehicle. So.
Is it pretty clear in South Korea already and Luxembourg who the liability lies in these countries that you are testing in? So
in all the areas we have operated robotaxi charging money, this regulation has been matured for at least 1 year. So long story short, I will say in all the cities we're operating, we already have this option applied for more than 4 years down the road.
Let's take another one. Are there international regulations for driverless driving? Would meeting such standards facilitate technology transfer to other countries, especially Western ones?
First, I hope so. But I would say it always takes time to human to learn, to get confidence about that one. So we can have some international guidance for that regulatory support for robotaxis for driverless driving. But for different countries, that depends on how long it takes the regulator to really understand, to be confident, to prove to themselves that this regulation really works. So I would say this is probably my prediction for the regulatory developments there.
Another one, I think this is a good question. Do you see companies like Uber and Grab adopting robo-taxis?
We do already have a collaboration with Uber or Grab, like this called TNC, Transportation Network Provider, the platform. So it's a win-win situation. Today we can work with the platform like Uber to adopt the traffic. So we can take orders on Uber as well. I would say that's also another big angle, big growth point for the robotaxi companies in the future.
So by partnering Uber, y'all can use their data to also train your robotaxis. Is that right?
This is also another benefit, but to keep it more direct, we can use their traffic. We can use their users. So Uber user can just order the robotaxi to take the ride.
So do you also are you discussing any partnerships with like ride-hailing companies in Asia, like Grab? I think Grab was also part of that question.
Probably I would say today in Singapore we work with CDG, ComfortDelGro as a partner here. So yeah, we treat different. Maybe we have different partners in different countries, but Singapore do use CDG as a partner.
I think our time is up, so thank you, Tiancheng, for being here with us today, and thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. We are continuing with the innovation theme, except we're moving from robo-taxis to sport. So global esports audience, little tidbit, is now larger than that of Major League Baseball and the NHL combined. So I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about that from one of our next speakers. I'd like to introduce Kieran Murray, Reuters Global Managing Editor for Events, who will steer this conversation to introduce his speakers.
Good afternoon, everybody. Delighted to be running this session, in part because both of these companies are a big deal in my household. I have two boys who are gamers and spend too much time playing League of Legends, so they follow your company's events. And my other son is a big fan of mixed martial arts, and so pays close attention to one championship fights as well. But I want to introduce and say thanks for coming along. We have Danny Tang, who's the co-founder and chief executive of Hero Esports, and we have Wafang Tay, who is the co-founder and group president at One Championship. So in our house, you guys are a household name, but we have an international audience online. So I wanted to give you maybe a minute each, just to give a broad sense of where you fit in that landscape of entertainment and sports, and how you make your money.
Sure, I'll start.
Yeah.
Hi, Hero Esports is the largest esports company in Asia. And the way we think about esports is it sits at the intersection of sports, entertainment, and gaming.
Sure.
We started the company about 9 years ago with the ambition and the vision that esports is part of the future of sports. And since then, we've built the company and our business model around that thesis. Right? So if you talk about the business model right now, broadly, two platforms. First is a service platform. Well, we are the end-to-end solution provider for all partners who are interested in creating anything in the esports ecosystem. We offer premium services and the best production quality in terms of esports production. So this is anything from designing the ecosystem, inviting the teams, structuring the tournament, producing the tournaments offline, streaming live the contents to our fans. So that's esports production. And the second vertical in that is commercialization. Sure. So like traditional sports, we have sponsors and brands and platforms who are interested in connecting with the super young, super diverse, and energized crowds of fans that we serve. And the third category is actually KOL management. Uh-huh. So this is where we have the athletes, retired athletes or coaches, or maybe just regular gamers who are interested in sharing their passion and day-to-day with the world. And we help them, we incubate them, we manage them, we help them commercialize and create content, and we act as an agency in that. So that's all part of our servicing platform. Okay. And the second platform we have is the product platform, sure, where we actually run some of our own esports tournament titles. Like just this year, we launched our first edition of Asia Champions League. So this is Hero Esports Asia Champions League, Asia's first multi-title, meaning you have different esports game titles all under the one roof, and where countries in this region can compete against each other. So that's ACL. We also have new products that are coming up, such as the music vertical. We're partnering with Tomorrowland. Okay. We just announced, actually a couple of days ago, that we're bringing Tomorrowland's first ever indoor experience to China this November. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. And Wafang.
Great, so One Championship is Asia's largest sports property, a sports league. We're also the world's largest martial arts organization. Some of you may have heard of the UFC. They've been around about 30 plus years. We've been around 13, 14 years. We have 60 plus shows all across the world, mostly in Asia, some in the Middle East, some in the US. So we actually broadcast in 2 different time zones. And we stream or broadcast in about 195 countries. As some of you know, we are in the martial arts business. So the UFC is very focused, for instance, on mixed martial arts. That is one type of martial art. For us, yes, mixed martial arts is part of the offering. But if you come to one of our 60 shows, you will notice kickboxing, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, different types of martial arts in one show, both male and female. In terms of the business model, to be honest, it's relatively straightforward in the sense that we are a traditional sport. So the model is not that different from the NBA, the EPL, etc. Now, of course, traditionally, most of the big global sports leagues are from the West. We are the only ones in the top 10 leagues in the world that are born in Asia and that are growing from Asia to the Middle East and to the West as well. In terms of revenue streams, we have traditional revenue streams that all of these leagues enjoy. Sponsorship, so sponsors paying us to put their logos, to feature them in our programming. We have media rights. So this is basically someone like Amazon Prime Video in the US paying us media rights for us to stream, or for them to stream our live fights in the US. And this is usually on a country-by-country or a region-by-region basis. These are traditional. Oh, of course, we have ticketing, right? When you come to an event, you buy a ticket, you watch. So media rights, sponsorship, and ticket sales are some of the more traditional, income streams of this type of business. But beyond that, we also have things like hosting fees. Formula One has made, a huge business of this, going around the world and having city governments pay them fees to have their events in those cities. We have some of that as well. And ultimately, in any sort of, sports league, ultimately this is a business of fans and fandom, right? It doesn't matter if it's sponsorship, media partners, cities that want to host your event. Why are they doing this, right? Because ultimately, the end market is the sports fan. And in this day and age, there's ways that you can monetize the sports fan directly, right? You can sell them an NFT, you can sell them a T-shirt, you can sell them a pay-per-view. So this type of revenue is what we call B2C revenues, right? So we have B2B, business to business. We have B2G, business to government, i.e. city hosting. And we also have B2C revenues. At the center of it is ultimately the IP, One Championship.
Great. In doing the reading ahead of this session, the one thing that absolutely fascinated me was for your company and the demographics. That a very large percentage of your audience, of your core audience, is young women as opposed to just young men. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that in terms of how you see that and why that's the case. Because it just seems, from an ignorant perspective coming into it, that it would be majority 15 to 25-year-old boys, right?
I know. It's a little hard to understand or to believe when you're just looking at the numbers.
Sure.
Right? We have a core audience of esports fans that are average somewhere around 25, 26-year-olds. Of that, almost half of that is male audiences and almost the other half is female. Yep. This compares to traditional sports where that percentage of female fans are a lot lower. Sure. And if you look at, this is a broader audience space that combining both offline and online. If you look at the offline attendance, actually in some of our tournaments, you actually see more female attendance than male attendance on site. Yep. In some of our titles, we see anywhere between 60% to 80% for some of our mobile titles. Sure. And our latest stats actually coming from earlier this year for our shooter title, our Battle Royale title, Peacekeeper Elite, which is PUBG Mobile outside of China. We actually got 90 plus or 95% female attendance in the stadium cheering for their teams and fans.
So you're probably not a sociologist, but why is that? Why is that? Why is there such a difference in that space relative to other sports?
Why is that surprising? That's my question. Sure. When you look at the demographic of the next generation of gamers, where young kids these days, they grow up, they're born into this world, they're digital natives. Sure. They're gaming fluent. Like when you look at the kids, they game and they socialize with their friends. That's how they socialize with each other. That's how they connect with each other. And they have a wide variety of platforms that they can do this on. They can do it on PC, they can do it on console. And now, it's particularly in our region, they're doing it on mobile devices, which make it a lot, makes it a lot easier for people to access and makes the barrier to entry, the skill levels to entry a lot lower. So which means when you look at the gaming demographics, it's identical. Right? You get equal amount of boys who like playing games as well as girls who like playing games. When you have that as a starting point, then the people who are interested in who's the best in the sports naturally is going to be male and female.
Sure. Okay, great. Well, fine. That's not the case in your industry, I'm guessing, or is it?
Well, you'd be surprised. I would say yes. Traditionally, this has been more of a male fan-driven industry. But, depending on, and we've done surveys over the years. I would say today, our female fan base is about 30+%, which is probably a little bit more than you would expect. Sure. But depending on the survey, there have been times when surveys have thrown up numbers as large as 40 to 45%. I think we really live in a world today where sports is, participated in and consumed by both males and females. In fact, female sports right now, there's a big wave, popularity, participation, media, content creation. Look at, for instance, in the US, the WNBA, and their growth, right? And new franchises, new teams being formed. In our experience, actually, a lot of the big faces of the franchise traditionally have been female. There's a fighter called Angela Lee. She has since retired. Some of you here probably have watched her fight, in Singapore and other countries. She was one of the faces of the brand. If you look at all of our big events historically, 1 century, 100th event, 1 Century, our 100th event. We had a 10-year anniversary event as well, 1X. They were actually headlined by female fighters. So actually, the nice thing about this sport, unlike, say, American football, which is very popular, obviously, in the US, is this sport is actually very gender diverse. We have a lot of female athletes, in one championship.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
My next question is around technology, and I see that one of the questions from the audience is very similar to my next question. You're fairly young companies, 9 years and 14, 15
13,
years.
14,
right?
yeah.
Can you explain to us what you got right on the technological side? What were the big technological initiatives or elements of the business that you got right that drove that growth up until now? And what you think will be the key elements of the technology part of the business for the next few years? If you go ahead.
Sure. I think, look, for us, it's that answer to me is pretty straightforward. We made a big bet on digital when we started the business. Sports traditionally has been consumed on linear television. Yep. When I was growing up, I would watch sports mostly from the West, be it the English Premier League or the NBA, on a TV channel. They would buy the rights and I'd watch it on the channel at a prescribed time. But the good thing about our situation is when we were born in 2011, the internet was already a thing and it was coming up. Sure. YouTube, Facebook, Tencent, in China, they were on the rise. The advent of digital media, mobile internet, all of that was on the rise. And we made a big bet, early on this medium. We put a lot of our content for free, actually, long-form, short-form highlights on the Facebooks of the world, on the YouTubes of the world, because these platforms do not see geographical boundaries. In the old days, sports leagues would have to do media rights deals in different countries to get their content out there. We just went to Facebook. We had a deep partnership with them. The people at Facebook and YouTube will tell you that we consistently rank, top 3, top 4 watch property on their mediums, on their platforms. So we made a big bet on digital mediums early on. And I think part of that bet was also making sure that we left quite a bit of the content free. When you're building a new sports league, there is obviously a temptation to try to monetize it as soon as you can. But there's always a trade-off between monetizing and reach, right? Because when you monetize, typically it means that you have to keep the content exclusive to one platform, 2 platforms in a particular country. We were pretty liberal early on. We left money on the table. We put it free. And we produced a lot of content, and we still do today, actually.
Sure. And in terms of that growth for your specific company, in a way you're kind of sacrificing profitability in those first few years. When does that change? Is that changing now? Does that change in 2 years' time? Does it change in 5 years' time? When does profitability kick in because of the expansion you've got?
That question hits, I think, right at the heart of building a global sports league. This is not the type of business you can just start and monetize on day one. You have to build it. You have to get the athletes, the broadcast, the distribution, and the product has to be good too, right? Sure. The lights, the sound, everything. So everything has to be there before someone actually says, hey, that's a good product. But that's not enough. You have to get it in front of many, many, many eyeballs, and they have to experience it once, twice, thrice, and then they have to have a repeat pattern of wanting to return and watch your content, right? That takes a while. Sure. If you ask, anybody that is in this business, right, even our friends at the UFC, it took a long time, right, more than a decade, right, before they started to really sort of materially monetize. Same thing. So it's a real trade-off that you have to make early on. It's like a theme park. You have to have the rides, the infrastructure, the gates. You have to have everything before you open it. Same with the big sports league.
And when does that, for your company, when does that turn into profit?
I would say
this year, next year?
I would say that, so there's two stages to this. One is when the revenue starts really coming in at scale. And the second is when revenue exceeds cost, right? So the first point was probably hit, I would say, mid to late COVID. That was a decade in, right? Because our viewership basically hit a critical mass and it started growing exponentially. Okay. I think it helped as well that during COVID, people were at home looking at their screens, right? With nowhere else to go. That definitely helped. But during COVID, we saw our viewership just go. If you look at post-COVID and pre-COVID, we're talking about hundreds of times, even thousands of times, depending on the country. Got it. Right? Yeah. So today, we're doing in excess of 30 billion organic, okay, not boosted, organic video views every year. Got it. So revenue, then you see the revenue deals start coming because you hit a critical point where you become too relevant, and too interesting and too engaging to fans, around the world to ignore. Okay. And that's when media rights. So all the streams that I talked about, they all start happening at the same time. Sponsorship gets bigger, media rights gets bigger. You start selling out stadiums. So every single revenue stream, you start setting records. And for us, the profitability point is very near. Okay. Oh. It's a fixed cost business, right? Once the revenue exceeds, because it doesn't matter if it's this year or 2011, the cost of staging X number of events doesn't really change.
Sure.
Less inflation, right? Except for inflation.
And Danny, the successes, the technological successes that drove your growth, what were they?
We talked about our fans being digital natives. Yep. We're actually, as a company, a digital native company.
Sure.
I mean, the whole promise of esports, it being like differentiated from traditional sports, is that esports is interactive, esports is immersive, and it's the perfect blend of the physical reality that we live in and the virtual space that we operate in. Mm-hmm. I mean, our generation, and also our kids' generation, we live, we work, we game, we compete, not just in physical space, but also in virtual space. Sure. So for us, from the get-go, technology is a core part of our DNA. So when we talk about our different revenue streams, right? When we talk about creating those esports tournaments, everything is a combination of both physical, online, in-stadium experience, as well as the online, the virtual experiences. Meaning that we employed we have employed all the new technologies out there in our production, in our presentation, to ensure that we give our audiences the kind of immersive experiences. VR, AR, XR, sure. And now AI. Sure. And then we use all of the new technologies. Whenever there is a new technology that comes up, we snap it up and we try to apply it.
Can you give me a couple of examples of how AI will fuel that in the next few years? Like that you see the specific role for AI to drive that?
Yeah. We've actually started our investment in AI a couple of years ago. And we started developing our algorithms in-house in sort of analyzing the activities and behaviors of our producers during the production process, as well as how our contents are engaging our fans. So we think about AI in two main ways. One is we use it in production. So this is where we have our algorithms push us recommended cuts and camera points. Now, if you try to visualize that in traditional sports, you have different cameras. You have cameras focusing on the soccer ball, you have cameras focusing on different players. But in esports, in an in-game scenario, you have hundreds of cameras. You have actions happening at every different parts of the map. So traditionally, we would have our young producers who are manually tracking those hundreds of different camera captures and try to decide what will be the best view to present to our fans. But now, based on our experiences and data and our algorithm in-house, we have the capability to use the AI assistant to push us. Here are the 9 most likely.
This is where it's happening.
Exciting. Yeah, that's where it's happening right now.
Okay.
So we have that on the production side. On the experience side as well, we use data, we use AI, we use algorithms to help us to bring about the kind of the more immersive experience for our fans. Of course, in production. I mean, if you look at any of the video footage from our tournaments, you're going to see, the virtual dragons, screaming out from the screen. We have a lot of that. But also in terms of creating and interpreting the experience of the athletes and make it more relatable to the fans. Like we had an initiative with Qualcomm where we jointly developed those AI-enabled facial recognition mechanism. So what it does is that you'll notice that when people are playing games, especially our Asian athletes tend to be a little bit more, not as expressive as kind of in physical sports or in the Western athletes. So we actually use the algorithm to help us to decipher and take their biometrics, the heart rate, the kind of speed of action, and their facial expression to put it all in a computable format and then present it to our fans so that they
real time.
So they understand, oh my God, he's super
totally
worked
stressed
up.
Out right now.
He looks super calm on the surface, but he's super worked up right now. Yeah. So we use that in different formats to help to bridge that kind of understanding and connection between the fans and athletes.
That's great. Wolfgang, I had a question for you about the US market. It's a tough one. That's where UFC is. That was the dominant player. Mm-hmm. How much opportunity is there? And can you tell me about the Trump factor there as well? He's a big fan of UFC. Yeah. He wants to host an event at the White House next year. Is that a plus or a negative for you guys in terms of Trump's engagement in the sport, but also in favor of your main competitor?
Look, I think anytime anybody famous is a fan of our sport, it's always a positive thing, I think, right? Because it just brings attention to the sport. Look, the reality is that combat sport is still very fast growing, right? Even though combat sport actually, as a practiced sport, has been around for thousands of years. If you think about Asia and all of the Asian countries, every one of them has martial arts.
Sure.
You know, there's Taekwondo in Korea, Muay Thai in Thailand, different types of Wushu in China. There's, you know, the list goes on and on and on. Even India, that people don't traditionally associate with martial arts, is big on wrestling, especially the North.
Sure.
So martial arts has been around a long time, but in terms of commercializing it, professionalizing it, organizing it, broadcasting it, this is really more of a recent phenomenon. You know, first, you know, by the UFC and then by us, right?
Sure.
So actually, anytime anybody is famous, is interested in the sport, I think it's a good thing.
Will you be asking him to host one of your events?
He's welcome to come if he wants.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We've had 2 events in the US
Sure.
so far,
Yep.
both in Denver. The last one was at the Ball Arena, where the Denver Nuggets play.
Sure.
See, what we know is this. Every time we have gone to the US, we sold out these stadiums, right? So there is demand for the product.
Sure.
We have a lot of fans in the US. We're currently streaming on Amazon Prime Video. We have a deal, a 5-year deal,
Yep.
that takes us all the way through the middle of 2027. So there is actually a product market fit.
Sure.
The reality is that we have our hands so full in Asia,
Sure.
you know, that we're gonna you know, do this sustainably and in our own time. But there definitely is a market there. We definitely are expanding there, and we want to do more there, right? Beyond the current Prime partnership and the 2 events that we've done so far.
Okay, great. We've got about 90 seconds left, so I'm going to give you 2 quick-fire questions from the audience. First one is, are One Championship and Hero Sports looking to launch an IPO in view of the rising investor interest? That's a pretty quick one. Yay or nay?
Yeah, that's always part of the plan.
Where would it be?
Ooh. I can't really answer that question, but I will tell you that we have definitely, you know, been in conversations with exchanges both in the West and over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Danny?
Growth focus for now. There's so much happening in our industry in the next couple of years. We're actually seeing the first global level esports tournament IP happening. Last year was Saudi Arabia launching Esports World Cup. This year is the 2nd edition. And in 2027, we're actually going to see the inaugural version of Olympic Esports Games.
Okay.
So a lot is happening in our space. So still razor focus on growth.
So not for now?
Not answering.
Okay, great. And the last one, this will have to be a real quick fire because we're down to 15 seconds. But how would you are we at an inflection point where the line between physical and digital sports is blurring, and how are you preparing for that convergence? 20-word answer.
I'll start. We're born for that. We call ourselves Platform 9 3/4. For those of you who read Harry Potter, this is where the Muggle world and the magical world converge. That's us.
Okay.
Yeah, we are already doing this. You know, we have, I think it's called Meta Quest now, Oculus deal. The reason why I use Oculus is because we entered this deal many years ago, right, with Facebook, with Meta, now Meta. So we are in the virtual world. We are in Web3 games. We are in Web3 comic books. We are already doing this, right, in terms of this sort of mixed reality world, physical, you know, blurring with digital.
Okay, great. Thanks for the questions, really good questions, and thanks for both the panelists. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. As a group of sports experts and fans, you just beat the clock there. So we move on now to another fast-moving frontier that underpins a lot of all the exchanges we do here in Asia, cross-border payments. This session is titled Asia Leads the Way for a very good reason. The Asia-Pacific region now accounts for more than 1/3 of the world's international payments volume. So the challenge from here is creating seamless, secure and scalable solutions. And to talk about that in more detail, please welcome back my colleague Kane Wu, who will introduce her panelists from Hashkey and Ant International.
Hello again, everyone. I am super excited to be moderating this panel with 2 of Asia's very technology pioneers. And Sia Yan here is the Japan business partner of HashPOTC Global, which provides virtual asset trading services to professional and institutional investors. And next to her is Calvin Lee, who is the head of platform tech for Ant International. Ant International is an affiliate company of China's fintech giant Ant Group, which was founded by billionaire Jack Ma. For starters, could you walk us through how you are applying new technologies such as blockchain and AI in cross-border payments? We'll start with you, Sia.
Thank you for the question, actually. For blockchain, the normal use case in cross-border payment is stablecoins. So stablecoin has dramatically reduced the settlement time and the cost of cross-border payments. If we take a 1,000 USD cross-border payment as an example, if it is settled on chain with USDC, the cost is only less than $1 or $2. But comparing with normal way, if it goes with Swift approach, it costs about over 80 USD. So that's a gap. And also for the settlement time, if it is happened on chain with USDC, it is always settled within seconds, and comparing to like 3 days traditional banking transfer. So that's a big difference. By that, we can see like stablecoin volume has hit 27.6 trillion in 2024, which is Visa and MasterCard combined together. And also for that, we can, in the industry, we have witnessed a lot of like payment gens already embracing this stablecoin infrastructure. For example, like PayPal issued PYUSD, their own stablecoin, and Stripe actually acquired Bridge. And then the Visa is also adopting like stablecoin settlement networks called Treasury Up, and the market cap of stablecoin is actually winning to like over 250 billion by the year of 2024, and then it will be with a forecast of like 2.8 trillion in by the year of 2028. So there's a huge like institutional adoption and also the interest about stablecoin as well. A lot of like compliant players in the industry, just like us, we acquire a lot of license among like multiple jurisdictions, and to provide like professional trading and also like custody OTC services to institutions and family offices, high net worth individuals. So we can see like tokenized products are becoming attracting a lot of like institutional attractions. And the last point is like we can see stable coins now becoming from the instrumental currency to the infrastructure currency. So by the year of 2030, the U.S. Treasury actually expects 3.7 to 3.9 trillion of like the stable coins circulating globally. And also like we can see Hong Kong just issued the policy statement 2.0. So it's very eagerly to position itself as the RWA publishing and also circulation hub for the world.
Thank you, Sia. Over to you, Calvin. I mean, we understand Ant Group has been a traditional cross-border payments giant in terms of wallets, online wallets, and facilitating businesses, for cross-border transactions. But what are you doing actually in AI or blockchain these days?
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Calvin Lee. I lead the platform tech business unit of Ant International. In fact, we run the treasury infrastructures for Ant internationally. We support the Alibaba ecosystem, our merchants around the globe. I think let me start by introducing how we are structured and using and then probably this blockchain. So in Ant International, we have 4 business lines, including Alipay Plus, in which we have a unified e-wallet gateway supporting a lot of economic activities, especially travel. And then Anton, which is our merchant acquiring business, followed by World First, which is the unified account to serve small and medium merchants around the globe. So my business belongs to the 4th business pillar, which is called Better, which is embedded finance business. So we provide treasury services to merchants and payment businesses around the globe. Last year, we processed over $1 trillion to support various lines of business, payment business. About 1/3 of this payment we processed on blockchain. So we work with more than 10 global leading banking partners using tokenized bank deposit to move liquidities around the globe to achieve a 7/24 service and instant payment experiences. This helped us a lot to reduce our liquidity costs and working capitals. Depends on different use cases. This helped us to lower our cost in FX and liquidity management by 30 to 60%. On the other hand, we also process a lot of FX transactions annually. So in 2024, we processed close to $200 billion of FX. So in FX business, there is a major pain point, which is the volatility of the market. The longer the time that you expose to the market, the bigger the risk. So we are using an AI technology, which we call it Falcon Time Series Transformer, which is a transformer-based model we use to forecast future cash flow. We used to forecast every line of our business cash flow by hour, by day, by week. Based on that, we manage our FX exposure. Using this technology, we effectively used these to manage our hedging activity, lower the cost by 30 to 60% for our own business, for airlines, and for various customers.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Calvin. I mean, Sia, you brought up the topic of stablecoins. We understand that U.S. President Donald Trump is a big promoter of cryptocurrency and stablecoins, and we saw, the IPO of Cycle, which I think has given the market a big boost. I'm curious, and both of you are advocates for stablecoins, obviously, but I mean, what is your vision in terms of enabling stablecoin in the context of cross-border payments, especially when we are faced, a lot of the businesses are faced with trade tensions and tariffs? I mean, how are they going to, is this actually a viable way for them to hedge potential risks?
From the experience that we're accumulating in HashKey Global, we can see we're dealing with a client base which includes like a lot of international trade companies, especially with commodity trade. It's like oil, and there's like iron, yeah. So and also the gas. So a lot of company actually have the request about like a faster settlement time and also better like compliance experience, meaning like not need to like do multiple like compliance requests, and also like dealing with the banking like the procedure, because it happens like several times, and because they also request a higher threshold for the payment amount and also for the frequency. So definitely stablecoin is a better solution on the technology level, because it dramatically reduces all the cost on the payment itself and also for the settlement time. So we can see the transaction actually between Hong Kong and also the Singapore. If it is with a trading company, it happens just like T+0. And it's very fast, and it actually work past all the holiday seasons and also the working times limitations. So that solves a lot of problem. But for the sanctioned areas, their business activities, we still like are operating our business under license system. So definitely there is AML and KYC requirements. And to everyone's surprise, actually, because we're emerging technology and the emerging industry, so the KYC and also AML requirements are more stringent than comparing to traditional finance. So that's also a question. But they help us to improve our service to like only institutions and accredited investors, and to actually provide a more compliant and smooth transaction for them. Yeah.
Thank you. And how about you, Calvin?
Yeah. So we do see great potentials with stablecoins. The main reason is stablecoin is actually using blockchain technology, and will greatly enable real-time payment and much more financial service to be upgraded. For us, we see global real-time payment and real-time treasury as a big opportunity. And stablecoin is a means, not the objective. We have been using tokenized bank money for years. We see the benefit of using it actually to upgrade our in-house clearing system to support many transactions, enable 24/7 service, and also enable instant payment. However, we are thinking that the potential that stablecoin and tokenized money can bring just started to show, probably 20% of its benefit. A lot more benefit could be achieved by further upgrading smart contract which enable programmable payment, which allow us to complete the current payment activities at a much higher efficiency and better customer experience, and of course, lower costs. For us, yeah.
Sorry, if I could stay with you for a second. I understand that Ant International is planning to apply for a license to issue stablecoins in Hong Kong. I think there's also reports that you're going to enter Singapore and Luxembourg as well. I mean, could you tell us a bit about that, your expansion plans and licensing plans?
Yeah, we are seriously considering and preparing stablecoin license application in multiple jurisdictions around the world. We see big opportunities. But for our strategies, we may consider to go a different way and build a new paradigm for stablecoin business. I think this comes from a few angles. Firstly, we will not be focusing on crypto transactions. On the other side, we'll be focusing on global payments. We believe stablecoins is an important means that will enable us to provide global payments in a much more efficient way and bring much better customer experience. Secondly, this will also bring us to a different business model in which the current stablecoin operators receive most of the income from net interest income. We are thinking of having probably part of the income from interest and more from payment. And by having a better payment activity, we may actually have other associated income from financial services, for example, foreign exchange or even wealth management. So we hope that we can build a new paradigm under this development of stablecoin legislation.
Right, yeah. The next question is for both of you. I understand that you are, you're either seeking or have multiple licenses in different markets in Asia and Europe as well. I mean, how do you navigate different regulatory requirements? Maybe we'll start with you, Sia.
Yeah, for sure. So at HashKey OTC Global, we have actually 3 licenses. One in Singapore is the DPT license under MAS, and there's like a license in Japan, which is under JVCEA, and there's a license in Dubai, which is under VARA. So definitely we're dealing with multiple jurisdictions and their compliance regulators on a daily basis. So I think the compliance cost is relatively high comparing to the unregulated business. That's a for sure question, but that's also the key competitiveness when we're considering our business model. So that helps us to introducing our business to the institutions and making them feel safe about their own assets. And we have like underlying technology, the custody technology that is using HSM technology to help them make sure their assets are safeguarded. By dealing with like different jurisdictions, they have like different requirements on the KYC and AML. We're also working with our compliance team to see if there are any experience that can replicate it, and maybe to enhance the experience with users that from different jurisdictions want to work with us in the future. I guess our compliance team handles the most part of that. And as of now, I can see the compliance is picking up the industry trends very fast, and they gave us like RFI, and we coming back with a question at a very speedy reaction. So the current like flow and also the communication is very smooth. Yeah.
Kelvin?
Yeah, so we are also focusing on researching the legislations in different areas. Our main focus on 3 areas. One is firstly, reserve management. How to ensure our customers' asset, should they purchase our token, they can be well preserved. So we have a lot of experience managing safeguarding for e-wallets around the globe. So we're extending the experience and also learning the new regulations to ensure that on the reserve management, we can actually make it very safe and also at the same time very efficient. Secondly, and probably most importantly, is to ensure that by having a stablecoin license, we will apply the high-risk standard on compliance, KYC, AML, and transaction monitoring, ensuring that we're entering a new area that we can hold our compliance standard consistent or even higher than what we're doing currently. Not bringing some of the negative side of what is happening in the Web3 area into our business. Last but not least, we're also investing heavily on technology. So we understand Web3 and Web2 technology are different with each other. The gaps are often underestimated by the existing applicants or people are entering into the Web3. So we also heavily invest our tech resource into this area, ensure we're built up enough technology reserve to help us to cope with different market situations in the future.
Right. I mean, since both of you are in expansion mode, you need to seek new licenses, you need to deal with the rising cost of regulation and compliance. I mean, is there any fundraising plans? I mean, how are you going to fuel that kind of expansion?
I think at HashKey Group level, there's definitely fundraising plans, but HashKey OTC Global is an independent entity, so we're not seeking for any investment as of now. But for HashKey Capital, they are the subsidiary of the company. We're raising it as a CMS fund, which is the underlying assets is actually the stock that is involving like crypto business, such as like Circle and also Coinbase. So last year when we were kind of like designing the strategy, we didn't expect this boom to happen, but this year all the tension has been picking up, so a lot of investors actually come to us and ask about the fund like progress. Yeah.
Calvin, you know what I'm going to ask. And international, we see the headlines, you know, some rumors that you guys are considering a Hong Kong IPO. Is that going to happen anytime soon?
On my role, so we're busy focusing on expanding our business globally to different geographic areas and actually building cutting-edge technologies to support our customer activities around the globe. So I think that's our current focus. Yeah.
But in terms of fundraising, I mean, is there any plan to raise capital to expand globally?
I'm not expert in that area. Probably would not be comment on this point for now.
Right, yeah. Well, next I want to talk about China onshore market, actually. I know that a number of the leading people, the leaders in Bitcoin or Web3 are actually from China onshore originally, but due to regulation, they have since immigrated to Singapore or Hong Kong or Dubai. I mean, China is still very much the largest market, right, for this part of the world. I mean, how are you navigating China in terms of introducing, I don't know, whatever you do? Are you trying to open up the market still, or what's the thinking there?
I think we're always keeping an observation of the things going in mainland China, but definitely we can see Hong Kong is the test field for all the business involving like digital asset, and sometimes Hong Kong is very aggressive, and the ambition is to becoming the hub for Web3 on a global scale. So you can see like Hong Kong is actually positioning with like the new like policy statement 2.0 actually launched. So they're emphasizing on stable coin and also like RWA. So you have like tokenized ETF, tax exemption, and also like digital asset funds profit tax exemption. So the policy here is very luring, and I guess if the Hong Kong can accumulate a lot of like good experience from regulating all the business players in Web3 in Hong Kong, and also like attracting a lot of investment from overseas to Web3 in Hong Kong, and also like cultivating some like university and also talents in Hong Kong. So maybe the ecosystem will be more promising, and then the signal will be eventually passed to the mainland China to see how this will react. But if it has to be like opened up for China's stance on digital assets, I would say like stablecoin is the most promising narrative we're seeing right now. Definitely just facilitating like international transfer and also like trade helps with the manufacturing industry based in China. So that's kind of like our minor observation about the stance of China, on digital asset.
Yeah. So for me, so we operate in many countries. Some of them are with foreign exchange regulations, so including China. So we now operate smoothly among all these jurisdictions, including China, through the foreign exchange channel and also the cross-border RMB channel. We are actually having different treasury centers, about 5 of them around the globe. In Asia, so we have dual treasury center in both Singapore and Hong Kong, even though we are Singapore head office. So we operate our treasury activities on both centers, including the blockchain-based tokenization and stablecoin strategies. So we have actively participated in the tokenization project in Hong Kong, including Project Ensemble, which we introduced tokenized bank deposit with the leading banking service provider over here. And in Singapore, we worked within Project Guardian, which is led by MS, So we also launched tokenized deposit and also built recently the FX protocol together with the industry group and ISTA, which will facilitate foreign exchange settlement with token so that all the foreign exchange settlement on blockchain could possibly be done on a real-time basis.
Right. Kelvin, you're based in Singapore, and Sia, I heard you're moving to Hong Kong probably very soon. I mean, how do you guys see the rivalry between Hong Kong and Singapore in terms of making things easier for people like you, for what you do?
I would say like both the Singapore and also like Hong Kong is the leading regulator in the region because like they have established a very clear licensing regime and also regulatory regime like back in the days, maybe like several years ago. So the things have been changing all the time, and Hong Kong you can see the attitude and also the ambition is very strong. So they want to lead the way, even comparing to the U.S. So if you can see Stablecoin Act will be officially come to the market to on this year, like 1st of August. But like the on the other side, like far overseas, like U.S. Stablecoin bills, the Genius Act, it has only passed Senate. But not House yet. Mm-hmm. So and also like in the Europe, like the MiCA is a very comprehensive like compliance structure, but definitely doesn't have like an independent stablecoin regulation or maybe like licensing regime. And also under like the policy statement 2.0, Hong Kong is the first jurisdiction that has like custody digital asset service in its independent licensing system. So there's a lot of like very progressive advancement like happened in Hong Kong. So for Singapore, a lot of like players in the industry are questioning is Singapore becoming more and more strict about digital asset? But what we observed is it's a very natural way that they're monitoring and also like regulated digital assets. So they actually produced a regime like 3 years ago. It's just like followed by their plans, and last month at the end of June, definitely they're moving like like crypto-related unlicensed players out of the market. But that's has been decided three years ago, like at the beginning of designing of the system. So definitely most of the players follow the rules, and they actually benefited from the clear regulations here in Singapore. So I would say like the both sides has its chains and it has different edge on the regulation and also development of digital asset industry. Now Hong Kong is very focusing on stablecoin, also like RWA. It has picked up its track already. Yeah.
How about you, Kelvin?
So we see these two financial centers complementary to each other, and our customers also believe so. I think we see a good customer mix of both centers. Singapore focuses on Southeast Asia, but also overlook globally, and Hong Kong cover Greater China, and also even North Asia, including Japan and Korea. So we see a different mix of customers and actually financial products over here. We will remain actually present in both financial centers to ensure that we can cover our customer needs.
Right. We do have some questions from the audience. Let's see. Oh, yeah, this is a very interesting one. Could we go back to the other page where questions about crime? Give it a second. Right, so Sia and Kelvin, what are your companies doing to deter criminals or crime organizations from using cross-border transaction digital assets to launder money?
Yeah, so we have designated workforce, which actually accounts for a significant portion of our overall tech people, to develop the latest technology to help us to manage different kind of risk, including financial crimes, AML, and others. I think these people using our own in-house technologies that we learned, accumulated from our early operation, and also with our partners. We're not only actually building it for ourselves, we also open this technology to our merchants and other payment partners which worked with us as well.
How about HashKey?
Yeah. As a compliant entity, I would say we're just follow the compliance requests that we're doing, the KYC and also AML every transaction, and not even just like offline banking transfer, but also like online on-chain analyze. So we use like Moody's service and also like chain analyze to monitor every like wallet transaction and the wallet address. So definitely it's a real-time monitoring, and also like we have a very comprehensive system to help us filter out all the criminals and also the bad act from our clients. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think that's our time. Again, thank you to Sia and Calvin for your wonderful insights today. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you. From AI to blockchain, I think it's clear that Asia is leading in the innovation stakes. Now, for our last session of the day, before we set you free for some refreshments, we're going to turn to a different but equally critical part of the financial landscape. Our closing panel features two of the region's influential policymakers. State Bank of Pakistan Governor Jamil Ahmad is joining us here in the room, while Sri Lanka Governor P. Nandalal Weerasinghe is joining us by live video link. My colleague Cynthia is returning to the stage to host this conversation for us. Please welcome them.
Wow, wonderful to be back. So I've never interviewed two central bank governors at once. Not once, two of them. So I have Jamil here with me. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
And also joining us remotely from Colombo is Governor Weerasinghe. Thank you so much for making the time. So for this session, if I could set it off with you, briefing us about how the second half of your monetary policy will be going ahead. We know that you've held in June after 6 consecutive cuts. So how is the second half of this year looking?
Thank you very much, first of all, and good afternoon to all of you. I think let me first give some of the background from where we have come to this stage, and then we'll talk about the future also. So as you may recall, and some of you who have been monitoring the Pakistan market, that we have two main problems which we are facing in 2022. One was the rising inflation, and the second was the current account deficit, huge current account deficit, and which was at that time 4.7% of GDP, and our inflation was also increasing. Inflation peaked up at 38% in May 2023. And with the policy responses both from the government as well as from the central bank, we have been able to contain inflation, and we also have been able to contain the current account deficit. Our current account deficit, which was 4.7% of GDP in 2022, has come down last year to close to 0.5%, and this year, for fiscal year 2025, we have a surplus of $1.8 billion. And similarly, our inflation, which peaked in May 2023 at 38%, came down to 0.3% in April 2025, and now for the last fiscal year, on average, it was 4.5%, as against the 29% in fiscal year 2023. And going forward, we are making various policy decisions and continue the tight monetary policy stance in order to achieve and to stabilize the inflation within the medium-term target which we have, and that is 5 to 7% during the next. And we are hoping that during next fiscal year we will be able to stabilize inflation at that rate. At that level, our policy rate, which was increased gradually by 1,500 basis points within a short span of 2 years during fiscal year 2022-23,
to 22%, which was the highest level in our history. And we started then decreasing, cutting policy rate from June 2024, and currently it is now at 11%.
Right.
So it's almost half of our peak, and we are now seeing the results of this tight monetary stance, both on our inflation as well as on the external account.
Thank you so much. What about you? So I think we've seen some negative deflation numbers. Do you feel that inflation is bottoming out for Sri Lanka?
Yes, of course. This is the third quarter running. We are having this deflation situation. At the lowest point, we had negative 4% inflation, deflation 4%. Now we are gradually moving into a positive inflation. Now next month or so, we are hoping that inflation will cross the positive territory. It came mainly from the fact that there was administrative price changes of electricity tariff was reduced sharply during 2023, 2024 and 2025. As a result, this headline inflation became deflation. But from the monetary policy point of view, we have been in this cycle mainly because of the sharp inflation we had in 2022, 70%. We have brought it down to almost zero within 12 months. Since then, we have seen a very stable inflation. In between, we had the deflation situation because of the administrative price changes, but now we are going back to normal positive inflation. Our target is 5% medium to long term. I think we are on the path to reach 5% target in next 4 to 6 quarters. Right. That's why we are in the easing cycle. Right now, our policy rate is 7.75. The last two, we relaxed further 25 basis points. So I think we are in a right balance in the monetary policy. We have some space if we are to relax further. But I think right now we have a very cautious approach. Looking at forward-looking inflation 5% and growth is around 4 to 5%. I think we are in the right place right now at 7.75 policy rate. Market rates also have adjusted nicely, and also transmission is happening nicely. So we can see we have right balanced monetary policy at this point.
So while I'm with you, Governor Weerasinghe, I just want to find out what would be the next trigger for another rate cut. For example, could it be the energy prices, or do you think any changes in tariff policies or geopolitical tension? What are your top risks that you're looking at?
The main thing we are looking at from the forward-looking basis, what would be the inflation expectations going forward next 12 to 8 months? So in our survey, we see inflation expectations are very well anchored. Second thing, what we are looking at this actual inflation versus what we have projected. For example, our current projection is for us to reach 5% next year, somewhere at the beginning or second half or second quarter. But if you're going to see next month and next quarter inflation is lower than what our projected path, then obviously we see some space for us to relax. That's what we are closely monitoring. This is one thing. Second thing, we are looking at mainly the private sector credit growth. How credit is flowing into the economy compared to the economic growth. So that's also, we are seeing a credit is flowing into the economy sufficient for us to reach about 4 to 5% growth. So that is something also we are watching closely for us to see whether there's any space for us to relax monetary policy. Other important factor, we are looking at the fiscal performances from the government side, where government would be able to meet their fiscal consolidation process and move in the right path. That also gives us a comfort that fiscal policy is also supplementing the monetary policy. That's the other part. And also, lastly, the fourth factor, we are looking at the overall current account developments. Now, this is the third year of current account surplus Sri Lanka is recording. So this is something we are monitoring, just to look at the pressure coming from the external components. But it's uncertain, obviously, is the global tariff policy, we can talk about later. That those are uncertain factors we are closely monitoring. If there's something coming now, then we have some space to support the economy from the monetary policy point of view.
So before I go to you, Jamil, What about the Fed? What if the Fed cuts in September?
Yeah, Fed, I think there's again, I think expectations that there will be some easing policy for the Fed, but slower than what was expected originally. But for our monetary policy, when you look at Sri Lanka situation, we don't rely too much on the global interest rates because we are not an economy which is very exposed to global capital flows. A relatively closed economy in terms of financial flows, and our exposure to global capital flows or possibility of the short-term money moving in and out is not there. As a result, our monetary policy is mainly focusing on the domestic economy, and obviously foreign external economy, global interest is a factor for us to look at whether there are any portfolio inflows coming in or going out. But we don't see that much of exposure in that area. So we are very much focusing on the domestic economy when we set monetary policy, not pretty much on the global interest rates. We are obviously monitoring that situation, but it has not much impact on our monetary policy here in Sri Lanka.
Thank you for that. So what about Pakistan? So key triggers?
So for us, the monetary policy decisions are taken by the Monetary Policy Committee, which is an independent body and it's a statutory body. They take into account all the developments since the last MPC meeting, and particularly they focus on the forward-looking inflation as well as the current prevailing trend in price movements. And they also take into account the external account situation and if there are any pressures on the external account. And in addition, obviously, the economy growth and demand side factors are also taken into account. So there are multiple factors which are taken into account. Yes. It's more a data-driven approach, and based on the developments and the reflections in the data, that they take a decision.
I love it when the central bankers say we have to be data-driven. Yeah. If I hear it one more time. So at this stage, I'm curious about what your take would be on the US dollar. The US dollar has fallen to more than a 3-year low recently, and then does that complicate your policies for the second half?
I will say that not as such any complication, because of the reason that when we look from the debt perspective, our foreign debt is, although it's mostly dollar denominated, but we have a very low contribution of commercial and euro bonds. Only 13% of our foreign debt is comprising of euro bonds and commercial loans. And similarly, in the trade also, although bulk of it is in dollars, and similarly our reserves are predominantly in dollars. So we don't see as such any impact, except that when the dollar depreciates, the other currencies appreciates, and as a result of that, it has some impacts. But we take into account the market developments, and based on that, the market response. Since we have a market-driven approach adopted as far as the currency movements are concerned. So based on the fundamentals, the currency can adjust itself either way. And as a result of that, any shocks which are there are absorbed by the currency itself. And secondly, we have also over a period of time built up substantial buffers. Since our reserves have increased from a low of less than $3 billion 2 years back, and currently at $14.5 billion. So as a result of that, we have ample buffers if there are any risks emanating within the FX market. So there are safeguards available which can address that situation.
Got it. So that's very helpful. Governor, we are seeing here, I want to take you to your reform efforts under the IMF program. Having defaulted on external debt before, how confident are you that this time around you can pull very tough reforms successfully? And specifically, before the end of this year, is there anything that you can achieve in concrete terms by the end of the year?
I think in terms of reforms under IMF program, we are right at the middle of the program. Since the crisis in 2022 and 2023, we started the program, 4-year program. Now we are exactly halfway, completed the 4th review, and all the program performances in terms of quantitative targets, structural benchmarks, all have been fully achieved so far. It has been very successful in terms of stability. We have been able to meet all the parameters, and also other important part that we have been able to complete the external debt restructuring process. It was completed last year. So that gives us much more space, especially for the government, much more space for them to meet the service obligations for next 10 years at a level which is much more comfortable and affordable. So that is a bit of a comfort from the debt servicing point of view for the government and for the country, that external debt service burden is no longer going to be a burden compared to the level of resources we have, compared to fiscal consolidation, and also monetary policy and other policy measures. But that is about the stability. But going forward, stability is not sufficient. We need to move into a higher growth path after the crisis. That's where now government and central bank is focusing on the necessary reforms, especially by the government, to growth enhancing reforms. There are several that kind of reforms with the IMF program, as well as with other World Bank and ADB reform programs. Those are going on.
What about this? Sorry.
Yeah, fiscal part, there's a strong reform program. The fiscal, first one is Public Fiscal Management Act. That's an important legislation. This was passed last year, under which there are clear fiscal rules in terms of primary surplus, target for 2.3% for next several years, plus the expenditure ceiling of a public expenditure. There's a ceiling. Those two crucial fiscal rules will ensure fiscal policy and its sustainability will be maintained going forward. And also, in addition, another important reform we introduced last year, 2023, that was the Central Bank Independence, new Central Bank Act, which ensures central bank independence as well as accountability and independent central bank monetary policy implementation. So, together with fiscal reforms as well as central bank reforms and debt management office, medium-term debt management strategy, and with the complete debt structure, we are in a now much better place in terms of stability, as well as we are now ready to go for a high growth path in the next couple of years.
Thank you for that. And you are confident that that's well underway successfully?
Yeah, of course, it's all in place. I think, and another important part is that we had the election, now we have a stable government now. There were some concerns before the election, this new government will change the course in the direction of the policies, but the government has committed to work with the IMF and move in the same direction as well as earlier governments to implement the reform with a much stronger commitment. So that is going on. That is comfort we are seeing, that there's a policy consistency over next several years. So that's a comfort factor for us.
Thank you for that. I need to go to Jamil. What about Pakistan?
So from our side, I will say that a large number of reforms are already underway, both from the government side as well as from the central bank side. Some of those reforms are part of the IMF program, since we are already currently under a program. And there are a number of other reforms which are outside the programs. From government side, the energy sector reforms, SOEs, privatizations, then revenue generation, expenditure controls. So these are the major areas of focus currently. From central bank side, we are more focused on the FX market reforms, as well as we are focusing on financial inclusion and digitalization. In the FX market, we have, during the last 3 years, have taken a number of reforms, and those are very wide-ranging reforms, I will say, and they have a major impact on our FX market, as also building up of the buffers. First of all, we have reformed the exchange companies. In the exchange companies, we have taken a number of reform measures, including the consolidation and merger of those exchange companies, and bringing them down from 166 to less than 40. And then we have come out with a new supervisory and regulatory framework for them, focusing on the internal control strengthening, focusing on their IT platforms, and a number of other measures, including the increase of capital requirements. And also we have coordinated with the law enforcement agencies, whereby we have taken a number of measures to control the smuggling of goods, and also stop the misuse of Afghan transit trade, with a scheme which we have in place. And also we came out with the AML and trade-based money laundering program, whereby we have taken a number of measures to stop the misuse of those measures. But more importantly, what is the result of that? We have been able to bridge the gap between the interbank and the informal market as well as the open market. The exchange rate between the two markets have now converged to each other. And as a result of that, we have been able to divert bulk of the remittances, workers' remittances, which were previously coming through the informal market, hundi hawala market, to the formal interbank market. And as a result of that, our remittances have increased from $30.3 billion in fiscal year 2024 to $38.3 billion in fiscal year 2025. It's a $8 billion increase as a result of these reforms. And I will say the most important outcome of this is that we have been, from the central bank side, have been able to buy almost $20 billion from the interbank market during the last 3 years. And this has provided us ample FX availability, and this has helped us in building up the reserves. As I said, our reserves currently are now $14.5 billion.
Jamil, thank you so much for that. I just want to point out about the military equipment purchases that Pakistan is really thinking about. Is there any financing plans that you could talk about, a purchase of military equipment from China?
So I'm not frankly aware of any such plans, but from the central bank perspective, we focus on meeting all the requirements which are there for the FX, whether it is coming from the procurement of services or for the procurement of goods. So we are more focused on the interbank market functioning, smooth functioning of the interbank market. And for that, we ensure that ample FX aid financing is concerned. So our focus is more on that.
Wonderful. So both countries, we know that FX reserves are rising and external debt is falling, which is great, and the stability is strengthening. So we have a question from the audience. When do you think Pakistan and Sri Lanka will be out of the IMF program? I know there is a scheduled timeline. Do you think both countries can be there on time?
So I can say from my side that we have a 3-year program in place, and it will be ending in September 2027. And we are on track to complete it as per the scheduled timeline. And we are also expecting that it will have a major impact on the buffers, FX buffers, which will be available with us by the end of the program. And that's the reason we are confident that after that, maybe we will not require an immediate program.
Right. Nandalal?
Yeah, from our point of view also, our program is a 4-year extended fund facility, which is expected to complete in the middle of the 2027. So what we are planning to do by the time, we will build our buffers, both external monetary fiscal buffers, so that we can stand on our own without having this kind of continuous bailout packages from external parties like even the IMF. So that is the plan. So for that plan, we are moving in the right direction in terms of both fiscal buffers, external buffers, also payment and stable exchange monetary policy. So that is we are in the right path. So this is whole idea is to build sufficient buffers and take the country to move into a higher growth path, also to have a sustainable both domestic and external debt, so that we may not need to go for another kind of a crisis-driven bailout packages. We have no intention to go again. This is hopefully government has already announced this probably would be the last program, and before that, government will and central bank will prepare the country to go on its alone without any kind of that kind of bailout package.
I certainly hope so. And there is one very hot topic among central bank community that we need to bring up, and thankfully we have that from the audience. So what is your position on stablecoin? Lots of countries are trying to develop their own, denominated on their own currency. Do you see that as a risk to policymaking and outflow risks, or would there be more opportunities for the financial markets? Jamil?
So I think most of the central banks currently are in the exploratory phase as far as the digital currencies and stable coins are concerned. Same is the case with us. We are building up our capacity. on the central bank digital currency, and we are hoping that soon we'll be coming out with a pilot program on that, launching of the pilot program. From the government side also, the government has formed a crypto council, and that's a overarching body, I will say, which is providing oversight on the latest developments in this area. And from that platform, we are also working on coming out with a new law, which will be laying down the foundations for the licensing and regulation of the players in this area, virtual asset players. And also recently the government has approved the formation of a virtual regulatory body, virtual assets regulatory body, which will be providing oversight to the players, which will be licensed under the proposed new law. From central bank side, I think the important thing is that we are already in touch with some of the tech partners. And we are exploring the possibility of coming out with a new program.
Sorry, I'm cutting you, but my question was addressing a little bit about outflow concerns, because in lots of countries, including Korea, central bankers are terrified of the stablecoin development because they think it's going to make just another channel to buy the one stable coin in Korea, for example, just another channel to buy the US dollar stable coin. And that's just going to accelerate outflow risks a little bit. Is that something that you would share?
I think I will say there are risks associated, and at the same time there are opportunities in this new emerging field. So we have to manage the risks evaluate and manage the risk very carefully, and at the same time should not allow to let go the opportunity. And that's the perspective which we are taking currently, and that's the reason we are exploring the possibility of coming out with first a pilot phase on the digital currency, and similarly the government is also focused on putting in place a legal and regulatory framework whereby they can then allow the marketplace to come out with stablecoins.
So time's up, but I want to see if you agree with him. He's seeing it as more of an opportunity. What about you?
I think from our point of view, we have a challenge in terms of our parts of the world. In Sri Lanka, we have capital flow measures. We are not a fully convertible capital account. We are restriction on capital outflows and inflows. So when you see these virtual currencies, that will be a challenge to control or have effective control on capital flow measures. That's one challenge we see. Because of the other challenges, AML challenges, anti-money laundering challenges using this virtual currency. For that, we are planning to introduce, to register virtual asset service providers. That is a requirement under AML regulation, and Sri Lanka is going for the mutual evaluation under Asia Pacific Growth for Money Laundering next year. For that, we need to register. We are working on FIUs under central bank. We are looking at to register virtual asset service providers as a first step. Still, we don't have any regulation or supervision on virtual assets so far. That's, I think, early stage. I don't see that's, so far that's not a risk or challenge right now. But going forward, we are preparing to face that risk, especially from two fronts. One is capital flow measures, other one is the anti-money laundering. These are the things that we are right now focusing, trying to address and collect more information and doing some studies, how best we can address those challenges going forward.
Thank you so much. Udita told me that you're a beautiful man, so I hope to see you in person in some time. And so same goes to you, that Ariba has informed me that you are beautiful and you're so insightful, so I'm so grateful that I got opportunities to talk to both of you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Please.
Thank you, Governors. Thank you, Cynthia. What an incredible day of insight, ideas, and inspiration. To all our speakers, thank you for your candor, your expertise, and your vision. To our sponsors and partners, thank you for your support in making this event possible. And to our audience, both the 400 plus of you who joined us here in Singapore and the more than 5 million of you who have watched the live stream over the day, thank you for being part of this important conversation. For those in the room, please do remember to share feedback via the app. We like to think of Reuters Next as more than a summit. It's a global platform for progress, and the journey continues. Our inaugural Reuters Next Golf takes place in Abu Dhabi in October. So if you're in the neighbourhood, drop in. Otherwise, please do join the global live stream for that one. And then we will also return to New York in December. And of course, Reuters Next Asia will be back next year. So the last thing for those here is for me to invite you to join us for refreshments out on the Cloud Terrace. And to everyone, thank you again for being part of Reuters Next Asia, and we'll see you soon.